The rain had stopped an hour before they lowered her into the ground. Takeshi Yamada stood at the edge of the grave with his hands folded behind his back, watching the mahogany casket descend into earth that smelled of wet clay and rotting leaves. Around him, 200 people in black held umbrellas they no longer needed. None of them wept. They knew better. His wife had been dead for 3 days. He had not cried once. Not when the doctors told him the cancer had reached her brain. Not when she stopped recognizing his face. Not when her breathing finally thinned to nothing in the slate-gray hours before dawn. He had sat beside her bed with his hand over hers, feeling the pulse slow beneath papery skin, and when the nurses came to take her body, he had simply stood, straightened his cuffs, and walked out of the room. Now, as the priest murmured words Takeshi didn't hear, he studied the arrangement of white lilies draped across the casket. Miharu had loved lilies. She had kept them in crystal vases throughout the house, on the mantel, the dining table, her vanity. After she died, he'd had every vase removed and stored in the basement. The house felt larger without them. Colder. Better. The service ended. People approached to offer condolences with bowed heads and carefully chosen words. Takeshi received them all with the same measured nod, the same 2 sentences. "Thank you for coming." She would have been grateful. His second-in-command, a square-jawed man named Tanaka, hovered at his shoulder, scanning the crowd with the practiced vigilance of someone who knew that funerals were excellent places for ambushes, but no one here would dare. Not today. Not at Miharu's grave. When the last mourner had shuffled away, only 3 figures remained: Takeshi, Tanaka, and an elderly woman in a charcoal kimono standing 10 feet to his left. His mother. Reiko Yamada had not spoken to him since the burial began. She stood with her spine straight and her hands folded at her waist, staring not at the grave, but at something beyond it. Perhaps the line of cherry trees at the cemetery's edge, their branches still bare from winter. Takeshi turned to her. "We should go." She didn't move. "Mother." Reiko's gaze shifted. Slowly, deliberately, she looked at her son with eyes that held the weight of 7 decades and the sharpness of cut glass. "I had a dream," she said. Takeshi's jaw tightened. He did not believe in dreams. He believed in ledgers, in bullets, in the precise architecture of fear. Dreams were for children and fools. Not now. 3 nights ago, Reiko continued, as if he hadn't spoken. The night Miharu passed. The rain began again, a fine mist, barely more than fog. Takeshi glanced at Tanaka, who took the cue, and stepped back toward the black sedan parked on the cemetery's gravel path. His mother remained motionless, unbothered by the moisture gathering in her silver hair. "What did you dream?" Takeshi asked, his voice flat. Reiko's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes, something ancient and unshakable. "I saw you standing in a garden," she said. "The house was behind you, the one your father built." Takeshi waited. "In your arms, you held a child. Not yours, not hers." She paused. "But yours, nonetheless." "I have no children." "Not yet." The mist thickened. Somewhere beyond the trees, a crow cawed. "After great loss," Reiko said quietly, "comes a gift. That is the way of things. You will be given what you did not ask for, what you did not want, and it will bring with it blood." Takeshi felt something cold settle in his chest, not fear, but recognition. His mother had always possessed an unsettling prescience, a way of knowing things before they unfolded. His father used to joke that she could smell the future the way dogs smelled storms. "Where?" he asked, surprising himself. Reiko tilted her head, as if listening to a voice only she could hear. "Where filth is discarded," she said. "Where the unwanted are left to rot." Then she turned and walked toward the car, her footsteps silent on the wet grass. Takeshi stood alone at his wife's grave for another moment, staring at the mound of fresh earth. He thought of Miharu's laugh, bright and unexpected, like sunlight through smoke. He thought of the way she used to touch his face when he came home late, her fingers tracing the tension in his jaw as if she could smooth it away. She had been the only softness in his life. Now she was gone. He turned and followed his mother to the car. The drive back to the estate took 40 minutes. Takeshi sat in the rear seat beside his mother, staring out the tinted window as the city slid past in shades of gray and neon. The rain had picked up again, drumming against the roof in a steady rhythm that made thought feel distant and muffled. Beside him, Reiko sat in silence, her hands folded in her lap. In the driver's seat, Kenji, Takeshi's personal driver for the past 15 years, navigated the slick roads with the calm efficiency of someone who had learned long ago not to ask questions. Kenji was 62, lean as wire, and utterly loyal. He had driven Takeshi's father before him. He would drive Takeshi until one of them died. They were halfway through the warehouse district when Kenji slowed the car. "Boss," he said quietly. Takeshi looked up. Ahead, on the right side of the road, was a stretch of chain-link fence bordering an industrial dump. Mounds of trash bags, rusted machinery, and broken pallets rose behind the fence like a monument to decay. The rain made everything glisten. "What is it?" Takeshi asked. Kenji pointed. At the base of the fence, just visible through the downpour, was a wicker basket. Takeshi's pulse didn't quicken. He had seen bodies in baskets before, severed heads, threats wrapped in silk. But something about the shape of it, small, humble, incongruous, made him lean forward. "Stop the car." Kenji obeyed without hesitation, pulling to the shoulder. The engine idled. Takeshi opened the door and stepped into the rain. It soaked through his suit jacket immediately, cold and relentless. He walked toward the basket with slow, deliberate steps, his dress shoes splashing through shallow puddles. Behind him, he heard Kenji's door open, then close. The basket sat tilted against the fence, half submerged in mud. Takeshi crouched beside it. Inside, wrapped in a length of wet silk, was a baby. A girl. She couldn't have been more than a few days old. Her skin was a rich, warm brown, mixed heritage, he guessed immediately, and her tiny fists were curled against her chest. Her eyes were closed. She wasn't moving. For a long moment, Takeshi simply stared. Then the baby's mouth opened and she let out a weak, rattling cry. Alive. Takeshi reached into the basket without thinking. His hands that had broken bones, signed death warrants, held his wife as she died, slid beneath the infant's fragile body and lifted her free. The silk clung to her skin, soaked through. She weighed almost nothing. He stood, cradling her against his chest. Behind him, Kenji approached, his face unreadable. "Boss, get a blanket from the car." Kenji hesitated for only a fraction of a second, then turned and jogged back to the sedan. Takeshi looked down at the baby in his arms. Her eyes had opened. Dark, unfocused, ancient in the way newborns' eyes always were. She was shivering. Dying, probably. Hypothermia. Exposure. Abandonment. He should leave her. He should walk away. Get back in the car. Let the rain finish what neglect had started. Instead, he pulled her closer, shielding her from the downpour with his body. Kenji returned with a wool blanket. Takeshi let him wrap it around the infant, then turned and carried her to the car. Reiko was watching through the rear window. When Takeshi slid into the seat beside her, the baby still in his arms, his mother's expression remained perfectly calm. She looked at the child, then at her son. "So it begins," she said softly. Takeshi said nothing. "Drive," he told Kenji. The car pulled back onto the road and the dump disappeared behind them in the rain. The Yamada estate sat on 12 acres of meticulously maintained land in the hills north of the city. High stone walls, iron gates, guard posts disguised as gardeners' sheds. The house itself was a sprawling fusion of traditional Japanese architecture and cold modern luxury. Low-pitched roofs, floor-to-ceiling windows, dark wood and granite. Miharu had hated it. "It feels like a museum," she'd said once, "or a tomb." Takeshi had never disagreed. By the time they arrived, the baby had stopped crying. She lay still in Takeshi's arms, her breathing shallow but steady. Reiko had disappeared into the house without a word. Kenji held the door open as Takeshi carried the infant inside. "Call Dr. Sato," Takeshi said. "Tell him to come immediately, and tell him to keep his mouth shut." "Yes, boss." Takeshi walked through the foyer, marble floors, sparse furniture, everything clean and untouched, and into the sitting room. He lowered himself onto the leather couch and looked down at the baby. She was staring at him, not crying, not fussing, just watching, as if trying to decide whether he was a threat. He didn't know what to do with his hands. Dr. Sato arrived within the hour. He was a short, balding man in his 50s with wire-rimmed glasses and the nervous energy of someone who lived in constant awareness of whose money kept his practice afloat. He set his bag on the coffee table, washed his hands in the adjacent bathroom, and examined the infant with swift, practiced efficiency. Takeshi watched in silence. After 20 minutes, Dr. Sato straightened and removed his gloves. "She'll live," he said. Takeshi felt something unclench in his chest. "She's dehydrated and mildly hypothermic, but nothing irreversible. I've started an IV drip. She'll need round-the-clock care for the next 48 hours, feeding every 2 hours, monitoring for infection. After that..." He trailed off, glancing at Takeshi uncertainly. "What are your plans for her, if I may ask?" Takeshi's gaze didn't leave the baby. "That's not your concern." Dr. Sato cleared his throat. "Of course. I'll arrange for a private nurse. Discreet." "Good. And the authorities?" "No authorities." The doctor nodded quickly. "Understood." After Dr. Sato left, Takeshi sat alone with the baby for a long time. She had fallen asleep in the makeshift bassinet the doctor had fashioned from a drawer and blankets. Her tiny chest rose and fell in a rhythm so delicate it felt like watching a bird breathe. He didn't understand what he was doing. He had no use for children. He had never wanted them. Miharu had miscarried twice, early in their marriage, and after the second time they'd stopped trying. It had been a relief, if he was honest. Children were liabilities, weaknesses, attachments that could be exploited. And yet, he reached out and touched the baby's hand. Her fingers curled reflexively around his thumb. Something in him shifted. It wasn't warmth, exactly. It wasn't joy. It was something older and more primal, a sense of claim. This fragile, unwanted thing had been placed in his path. His mother's dream had led him to her. Fate, or God, or simple coincidence, had delivered her into his hands. She was his now. He would protect her. He would raise her. And if anyone tried to take her, he would bury them. 3 days passed. The baby, still unnamed, grew stronger under the care of the nurse, a middle-aged woman named Haruna, who asked no questions and kept impeccable records. Takeshi visited the nursery every few hours, standing in the doorway and watching the infant sleep, or feed, or stare at the ceiling with her wide, dark eyes. He didn't hold her again. He didn't trust himself to. On the 4th night, just after midnight, there was a knock on his study door. "Come." Kenji entered, his face grave. In his hands, he carried a folded piece of fabric. Takeshi set down the whiskey he'd been nursing and gestured for Kenji to approach. "What is it?" Kenji placed the fabric on the desk. It was the silk cloth the baby had been wrapped in, now cleaned and dried, its colors vivid under the study's lamplight. Takeshi frowned. I told you to dispose of this. I was going to, Kenji said quietly. But then I noticed the pattern. Takeshi picked up the cloth. It was fine silk, hand-stitched, with an intricate border of deep crimson and gold thread. In the center, barely visible unless you knew what to look for, was a small embroidered emblem. A coiled serpent wrapped around a lotus flower. Takeshi's blood went cold. He knew that emblem. Everyone in the city knew that emblem. It belonged to the Zhao family. Specifically, it belonged to Vincent Zhao, the volatile, brilliant, utterly ruthless head of the city's second-largest criminal empire. A man Takeshi had been locked in a silent, simmering rivalry with for the better part of a decade. The two of them had never gone to war. Not openly. But they circled each other like wolves, each waiting for the other to show weakness. They controlled different territories, different trades. They maintained a brittle peace because full-scale conflict would cost both of them too much. But this... Takeshi stared at the scarf, his mind racing. The baby had been wrapped in Zhao family silk. The baby had been left where Takeshi would find her. This was not an accident. Kenji, he said slowly. Are you certain? Kenji nodded. I had it verified. That pattern, those colors, they're exclusive. Custom made for the Zhao household. There are only a handful of scarves like this in existence. Takeshi's grip on the fabric tightened. Does Zhao know? I don't know, boss. But if the child is his... Takeshi set the scarf down and stood, walking to the window. Outside, the estate grounds stretched into darkness. Rain streaked the glass. He thought of the baby sleeping upstairs, her brown skin, her mixed heritage, the way she had looked at him that first night, as if she could see something in him no one else ever had. He thought of his mother's dream. After great loss comes a gift. It will bring blood. Behind him, Kenji spoke quietly. Boss. This isn't coincidence. Takeshi's reflection stared back at him from the dark window. That child belongs to your enemy. For a long time, Takeshi said nothing. Then, without turning, he spoke. Then God didn't give me a gift. He exhaled slowly, his breath fogging the glass. He gave me a war. Vincent Zhao didn't believe in God, but he believed in omens. The scar ran from his left hip to just below his ribcage, a pale, puckered line that caught the light when he moved. 6 months old, still tender when the weather changed. The doctors said he was lucky to be alive. The bullet had torn through soft tissue, nicked his intestine, and exited clean. Another inch to the right, and it would have shredded his liver. Lucky. He stood naked in front of the floor-length mirror in his penthouse bedroom, studying the damage. The scar was ugly, functional, a reminder that even he could bleed. But it wasn't the scar that kept him awake at night. It was what the doctors had told him 3 weeks after the surgery, once the infection had cleared and the stitches had dissolved. The trauma caused internal complications, severe adhesions. We did what we could, but... sterile. Permanently. Vincent had listened to the news with his hands folded in his lap, his face blank. He'd thanked the doctor, signed the discharge papers, walked out of the hospital and driven himself home. Then he'd gone to his study, locked the door, and put his fist through the antique mahogany desk his grandfather had brought from Shanghai. He was 38 years old. He would never have children. The Zhao line, unbroken for 7 generations, carried across oceans and wars and revolutions, would end with him. Unless... Vincent turned from the mirror and pulled on a black silk robe. His bedroom was all glass and steel, minimalist to the point of sterility. No photographs, no personal effects, just clean lines and expensive emptiness. He walked to the bar cart and poured himself 2 fingers of Macallan, neat. His phone buzzed on the nightstand. He picked it up. A text from his head of security, a razor-thin man named Chen. Found something. Coming up. Vincent set the glass down untouched. Chen arrived 5 minutes later, letting himself in with the key code. He was holding a tablet, his expression carefully neutral. Well? Vincent asked. Chen tapped the screen and turned it toward him. We tracked her. The screen showed a surveillance photo, a narrow apartment building in the city's East End. Cracked concrete steps, peeling paint. The kind of place where people disappeared and no one asked questions. This is where she was living, Chen said. Apartment 4C, lease under the name Amara Ochieng. Vincent stared at the photo. Amara. The name tasted bitter in his mouth. He'd met her 11 months ago at a private club in the financial district, one of those places where the lighting was low and the music was just loud enough to drown out conversation. She'd been bartending. New to the city, new to the country. Kenyan, she'd said. Nairobi. She had a student visa and a degree in economics and eyes that held more intelligence than her job required. Vincent had been there with business associates. He'd watched her work. Efficient, graceful, unintimidated by the men who leaned across the bar and tried to impress her with their watches and their accents. When the bar closed, he'd sent everyone else home and waited. They'd talked for an hour, then less talking, then his car, then his bed. One night. That was all it had been. He'd made that clear. No promises. No complications. She'd nodded, dressed, and left before sunrise. 3 weeks later, she'd called him. I'm pregnant. Vincent had gone very still on the other end of the line. How far along? 6 weeks. Are you certain it's mine? A long silence. Then, yes. He'd told her what to do. Calmly, clearly, he would pay for the procedure. He would arrange for the best clinic. Discreet. Safe. She would be taken care of. No, she'd said. Excuse me? I'm keeping it. Vincent's jaw had tightened. We had one night. You don't know me. I don't know you. This is not a conversation. Then don't have it, she'd said quietly. But I'm not getting rid of my baby. She'd hung up. He'd tried calling back. No answer. He'd sent Chen to find her. By the time Chen located her apartment, she was gone. The lease was still active, but the place was empty. No forwarding address. No trace. Vincent had been furious, not because he wanted the child, but because he hated loose ends. He'd filed the problem away, assuming she'd either handled it herself or disappeared into whatever anonymous American life immigrants carved out for themselves. Then the shooting happened. Then the scar. Then the diagnosis. And suddenly, the child he'd demanded she destroy was the only child he would ever have. When was this taken? Vincent asked, still staring at the photo. 2 days ago, Chen said. I had someone check the apartment. She's not there. Obviously. But we found traces, blood in the sink, a broken lock on the door, signs of a struggle. Vincent's eyes narrowed. How much blood? Not enough to be fatal, but enough to suggest injury. Vincent set the tablet down and walked to the window. Below, the city sprawled in every direction, a grid of light and shadow. Somewhere out there, Amara Ochieng was bleeding, hiding, running. From what? From him? What about the child? He asked. Chen hesitated. That's the part you need to hear. Vincent turned. Chen pulled up another image on the tablet, a grainy screenshot from a traffic camera. The timestamp read 4 days ago. The image showed a black sedan stopped on the shoulder of a road near the industrial district. A man in a suit stood beside it, holding something wrapped in cloth. Vincent leaned closer. Who is that? Chen zoomed in. The man's face came into focus. Vincent's blood turned to ice. Takeshi Yamada. No, Vincent said softly. One of our informants in the district saw the whole thing, Chen continued. said. Yamada stopped his car, walked to a basket by the fence and pulled out a baby. Took it with him. The informant didn't think much of it until I started asking questions. Vincent's mind raced. Yamada had the child. Yamada, his rival, his mirror, the only other man in this city who commanded the kind of fear and respect Vincent did, had his daughter. Does he know? Vincent asked, his voice dangerously calm. Know what? That she's mine. Chen shook his head. I don't think so. He just lost his wife. Word is he's been holed up at his estate. If he took the baby, it might have been impulse. Grief. Vincent laughed. A short, bitter sound. Yamada doesn't do impulse. Then what? Vincent turned back to the window, his reflection overlaying the city below. What indeed? Yamada had taken his child. Whether he knew whose blood ran through her veins or not didn't matter. What mattered was that Vincent's daughter, his only chance at legacy, was in the hands of the one man he could never ask for anything. Find Amara, Vincent said. We're trying. She's off the grid. Try harder. Vincent's voice dropped. And find out everything Yamada knows. I want eyes on his estate. I want to know how many guards he has, where the child sleeps, what route he takes when he leaves. I want to know if he pisses standing up or sitting down. Chen nodded. And if he realizes who the child belongs to? Vincent smiled. It was the kind of smile that made men check their exits. Then we'll see if the old snake still has teeth. Vincent had first met Takeshi Yamada 7 years ago, at a neutral meeting brokered by the city's oldest fixer, a retired judge named Castellano who made his living keeping wolves from each other's throats. The meeting had been Castellano's idea. 2 rising powers. Too much overlap. Too many near misses. Sit down, the old man had said. Draw your lines. Stay out of each other's way. Vincent had arrived at the designated warehouse with 6 men. Yamada had arrived with 2. The Japanese man had walked into the room like he owned the air inside it. Shoulders back, hands loose, eyes cold and measuring. He was older than Vincent by a decade, but he moved with the controlled economy of someone who had nothing left to prove. They'd sat across from each other at a folding table, under a single hanging bulb. Castellano had done most of the talking. Territories, operations, rules of engagement. Vincent had listened, bored. Yamada had said almost nothing. When Castellano finished, Vincent leaned back in his chair and studied the other man. You don't say much, he'd observed. Yamada met his gaze without blinking. I don't need to. Vincent had smiled. Maybe that's why you're still alive. Maybe. They'd signed the agreement, shook hands, left without incident. But Vincent had felt it even then, the mutual recognition. 2 predators circling the same territory, smart enough not to fight, but not weak enough to submit. Respect, maybe, but also hunger. The truce had held for 7 years. Barely. There had been close calls, disputed shipments, a dock fire that might or might not have been arson. A missing courier who turned up in the river with his tongue cut out, but no open war, no blood, until now. Vincent spent the next 2 days preparing. He met with his captains, 8 men who ran different pieces of his empire. Drugs, weapons, extortion, real estate. He told them nothing specific, just to tighten security, watch for movement, be ready. They asked no questions, they knew better. On the 3rd day, Chen returned with news. We found her. Vincent looked up from the documents he'd been reviewing. Amara? Yes. Where? She's at a shelter, St. Catherine's on the south side, run by a nun named Sister Lucia. She checked in 2 days ago under a fake name, but it's her. Vincent stood. Condition? Injured, but stable. Someone worked her over. Bruised ribs, cuts on her hands and face. She's not talking to anyone. I'll go myself. Chen frowned. Boss, that's not. I'll go myself, Vincent repeated, his tone leaving no room for argument. An hour later, he was standing outside St. Catherine's shelter, a squat brick building wedged between a laundromat and a shuttered grocery store. The neighborhood smelled like grease and exhaust. A group of men sat on a nearby stoop, passing a bottle in a paper bag. Vincent walked inside. The lobby was dim and smelled faintly of bleach. A desk stood near the door, unmanned. From somewhere deeper in the building came the sound of children laughing. A door to his left opened, and a small woman in a gray habit emerged. She was maybe 60, with sharp eyes and the no-nonsense air of someone who had seen every kind of human misery and refused to be moved by most of it. "Help you?" she asked. "I'm looking for someone," Vincent said. "Amara Ochieng." The nun's expression didn't change. "We don't give out information about our residents." "I'm not asking for information, I'm asking to see her." "Are you family?" Vincent hesitated for just a fraction of a second. "Yes." The nun studied him, his tailored coat, his expensive shoes, the controlled stillness in the way he stood. She didn't believe him, but she also didn't turn him away. "Wait here." She disappeared down a hallway. Vincent stood in the lobby, his hands in his pockets. He thought about the last time he'd seen Amara, the way she'd looked at him before she left his penthouse. Not with hurt, exactly. More like resignation, as if she'd known from the beginning that he was the kind of man who didn't keep anything soft. 5 minutes later, the nun returned. "She'll see you, but you've got 10 minutes, and I'm staying in the room." Vincent nodded. The nun led him down a narrow hallway to a small room with 2 chairs and a window that looked out onto a concrete courtyard. Amara sat in one of the chairs, wearing a donated sweater that was too big for her and jeans that looked like they'd been through a war. She looked up when he entered. For a moment, neither of them spoke. She looked thinner, older. Her left cheekbone was bruised, and there was a cut healing on her lower lip. But her eyes, those sharp, intelligent eyes, were the same. "Vincent," she said quietly. He sat down across from her. "Amara." The nun positioned herself by the door, arms folded. "What happened to you?" Vincent asked. Amara's mouth twitched. "You care now?" "I'm asking." She looked away, toward the window. "Some men came to my apartment, a week after I stopped answering your calls. They didn't say who sent them. They just said I needed to get rid of the problem." Vincent's jaw tightened. "I didn't send anyone." "No?" She looked back at him. "Then who did?" He didn't answer. "They broke in while I was asleep," Amara continued, her voice flat. "Held me down. Told me if I didn't take care of it myself, they would. I fought. They hit me." She touched her cheekbone. "Then they left. Said they'd be back." "And the baby?" Vincent asked. Amara's eyes hardened. "Gone." "Gone where?" "I don't know." "Don't lie to me." "I'm not lying." Her voice rose slightly. "I delivered her alone in my bathroom 2 days later. Premature. She was so small I thought she'd die. I wrapped her in the only thing I had that was clean, a scarf my mother sent me. Then I left her somewhere I thought she'd be found." Vincent leaned forward. "Where?" Amara shook her head. "I don't know if she survived. I don't know if anyone found her. I left because those men were coming back. And if they found me with her, they'd kill us both." "Who were they?" Vincent demanded. "I don't know." Amara's voice cracked. "I don't know who you are. I don't know what you do. I don't know why men with guns would care about a bartender and her baby. But I know it has something to do with you." The nun stepped forward. "That's enough. You need to leave." Vincent ignored her. He kept his eyes on Amara. "The baby's alive," he said. Amara went very still. "What?" "She's alive. Someone found her." For the first time, Emotion broke through Amara's carefully controlled expression. Her eyes filled. "Where is she?" Vincent stood. "That's what I'm going to find out." He walked to the door. "Vincent." He paused. "Please," Amara said, her voice breaking. "Please don't hurt her." Vincent looked back at her. "She's mine. I don't hurt what's mine." Then he left. Chen was waiting in the car outside. "Well?" he asked as Vincent slid into the back seat. "She doesn't know where the baby is, but I do." "Yamada." Vincent nodded. "And if those men weren't mine, and they weren't hers..." Chen's eyes widened. "You think Yamada sent them?" "No." Vincent's mind worked through the pieces. Yamada doesn't operate that way. He's methodical. If he wanted something from her, he'd have taken it clean. This was sloppy. Rushed. Then who? Vincent stared out the window at the gray city streets. "I don't know yet. But someone knew about the baby before I did. Someone wanted her gone. And when that failed, someone made sure she ended up exactly where she'd caused the most damage. With Yamada." "With Yamada." Chen shifted in the driver's seat. "What do you want to do?" Vincent was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled. That same cold, hungry smile from 3 days ago. "Prepare the city," he said softly. "I'm taking back what's mine." He pulled out his phone and began making calls. The war was about to begin. The baby cried at 3 in the morning. Takeshi heard it from his study 2 floors below. A thin, insistent wail that cut through the silence of the estate like a knife. He set down the glass of whiskey he'd been nursing and listened. The crying stopped. Haruna, the nurse, would have it handled. She always did. He returned to the documents spread across his desk. Shipping manifests, account ledgers, a surveillance report on one of his captains who'd been skimming off the top. The usual machinery of empire. But his mind wouldn't settle. It had been 2 weeks since he'd found the child. 2 weeks since Kenji had shown him the Zhao family scarf. 2 weeks since he'd realized that the fragile, unwanted thing sleeping in his nursery belonged, by blood, to his enemy. He should have gotten rid of her. Quietly. Efficiently. Leave her at a hospital. Drop her at a church. Return her to whatever chaos had produced her and walk away clean. Instead, he'd kept her. He'd hired Haruna full-time. He'd had the nursery repainted. Soft gray walls, blackout curtains, a mobile of paper cranes that Maharu had made years ago and stored in the attic. He'd ordered clothes, formula, diapers. Things he'd never needed to think about. Every night he told himself he would handle it tomorrow. Every morning he went to the nursery and watched the baby sleep. She was growing, thriving. Her skin had lost that grayish pallor of near death. Her eyes tracked movement now. When Haruna held her, the baby would grip the nurse's finger with startling strength. Takeshi had held her only once since that first night. 3 days ago, Haruna had been changing her and asked if he wanted to try. He'd said no. Then, inexplicably, he'd said yes. The baby had settled against his chest like she belonged there. Warm, trusting. Her tiny heartbeat pulsing against his ribs. She'd made a small sound, not quite a cry, not quite a coo, and closed her eyes. Takeshi had stood there for 20 minutes, barely breathing, terrified he would break her. When Haruna finally took her back, his arms felt empty. Now, alone in his study, he rubbed his face and tried to focus. The Zhao scarf was locked in his safe. He hadn't told anyone else about it, not Tanaka, not his captains. Only Kenji knew. And Kenji would die before he spoke. But silence wouldn't protect them forever. If Vincent Zhao learned that his child was here, if he even suspected, there would be blood. The door to the study opened. Takeshi looked up. His mother stood in the doorway, dressed in a pale robe, her silver hair loose around her shoulders. She looked smaller at night, older. You should sleep, she said. So should you. Reiko crossed the room and sat in the chair across from his desk. She moved with the deliberate slowness of someone whose bones ached, but whose will remained unbroken. She cries for you, Reiko said. Takeshi frowned. Haruna handles the night feedings. I'm not talking about milk. He said nothing. Reiko leaned forward slightly. You visit the nursery 4 times a day. You stand in the doorway and watch her sleep. But you won't hold her. You won't name her. You won't let yourself love her. Love is a liability. Love is the only thing that matters. Takeshi's jaw tightened. I know what she is, Mother. I know whose blood she carries. Keeping her here is already dangerous. Pretending she's mine would be insane. Who said anything about pretending? He looked at her sharply. Reiko's expression was calm, implacable. She was brought to you, she said. By fate. By God. By whatever force you choose to believe in. You didn't steal her. You didn't buy her. You saved her. That makes her yours. Blood doesn't work that way. Blood is an accident. Reiko's voice hardened. What you do is a choice. Takeshi stood and walked to the window. Outside, the estate was dark except for the glow of security lights along the perimeter. Guards moved in slow patrols. Everything was controlled. Safe. Vincent Zhao will come for her, he said quietly. Then let him come. He'll bring war. And what will you bring? Takeshi turned. What does that mean? Reiko rose from her chair, moving toward him with that same eerie calm she'd had at Maharu's funeral. You've spent your whole life building walls, she said. Walls around this house. Walls around your empire. Walls around your heart. Miharu was the only one who ever breached them. And when she died, you sealed them tighter than before. Mother, that child upstairs is not a weapon. She is not a pawn. She is a test. A test of what? Reiko stopped in front of him. Her eyes, dark and ancient, held his. Of whether you're still human. The words landed like a blow. For a long moment, Takeshi said nothing. Then, quietly, what if I fail? Reiko's expression softened. Just slightly. Then we all do. She turned and left the study, her footsteps silent on the marble floor. Takeshi stood alone, staring at nothing. Then he walked upstairs to the nursery. Haruna was asleep in the chair beside the crib, her head tilted back, her breathing deep and even. The baby was awake, staring at the mobile of paper cranes turning slowly in the draft from the heating vent. Takeshi crossed the room and looked down into the crib. The baby turned her head toward him. Her eyes, dark, impossibly wide, locked onto his. She didn't cry, didn't fuss, just watched. Takeshi reached down and picked her up. She was heavier than before. Solid. Real. He held her against his chest, one hand cradling her head. She made a small sound and pressed her face against his shirt. Something cracked open inside him. It wasn't love. Not yet. But it was the beginning of it. He sat down in the rocking chair by the window and looked out at the dark grounds. The baby's breathing slowed, her tiny fists uncurled. I don't know what to do with you, he whispered. The baby sighed. Takeshi closed his eyes. For the first time in weeks, he felt something like peace. The attacks began 4 days later. The first was subtle. A shipment of electronics meant for one of Takeshi's warehouses was seized by customs. No explanation, no warning, just gone. The second was less subtle. 2 of his street captains were jumped outside a nightclub in neutral territory. One ended up in the hospital with a shattered kneecap. The other disappeared. The third wasn't subtle at all. Someone firebombed a restaurant Takeshi owned in Chinatown. It was closed at the time, no casualties, but the message was clear. Takeshi sat in his office with Tanaka and 3 of his senior captains listening to reports. It's Zhao, Tanaka said flatly. Has to be. We don't know that, one of the captains argued. Could be the Koreans. They've been pushing into our territory for months. The Koreans don't have the balls, another captain said. This is coordinated, professional. It's Zhao. Takeshi listened in silence. He'd known this was coming. Ever since Kenji had shown him the scarf, he'd known. Vincent Zhao was many things. Volatile, dangerous, brilliant. But he wasn't patient. If he wanted something, he took it. And if he'd learned that Takeshi had his child— What do you want us to do, boss? Tanaka asked. Takeshi met his second-in-command's eyes. Nothing. The room went silent. Boss? Tanaka said carefully. We don't retaliate, not yet. With respect, one of the captains said. If we don't respond, we look weak. Then we look weak. The captains exchanged glances. Takeshi stood. Zhao is testing us, seeing if we'll bite. If we hit back now, we give him the excuse he wants. So we don't. We tighten security. We move shipments through secondary channels. We wait. Wait for what? Tanaka asked. For him to make his real move. The real move came a week later. Takeshi was in the garden behind the estate, walking the stone path that wound through carefully pruned pines and a koi pond Miharu had loved. The baby, still unnamed, was with him, strapped to his chest in a carrier Haruna had insisted he try. It felt absurd, undignified, like wearing a target. But the baby seemed to like it. She was awake, her eyes tracking the movement of leaves in the wind, her small hands grabbing at the fabric of his shirt. Takeshi found himself talking to her, quietly, about nothing. Your mother would have liked this garden, he said. Not your real mother. My wife. She spent hours out here, pruning, planting. She said it was the only place in this house that felt alive. The baby made a sound. You would have liked her too, Takeshi continued. She was gentle, kind, too good for someone like me. He stopped by the pond and watched the koi drift beneath the surface, flashes of gold and white and deep orange. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with you, he admitted. I don't know if I'm the right person to— His phone buzzed. He pulled it out, a text from Tanaka. We have a problem. Now. Takeshi's blood chilled. He turned and walked quickly back toward the house, one hand on the baby's back to steady her. Tanaka met him at the door, his face grim. What happened? Takeshi asked. Zhao's men hit 3 of our operations simultaneously. Dock warehouse, underground casino, the safe house on 5th. They took everything. Cash, product, records. 12 of our people are in the wind. Takeshi's jaw clenched. Casualties? 5 dead, 8 wounded. And our response? The captains are ready to move. They're asking for permission. Takeshi looked down at the baby strapped to his chest. She was watching him with those wide, unblinking eyes. No, he said. Tanaka stared. Boss? I said no. We can't just let him— I know what we can't do. Takeshi's voice rose, sharp and sudden. The baby flinched. He forced himself to breathe, lowered his voice. I know, but if we escalate now, this turns into open war. And in a war, everyone loses. Then what do we do? Takeshi was silent for a long moment. Then, set up a meeting. With Zhao? Yes. Tanaka's eyes widened. He'll never agree. He will. Because he wants something, and he thinks I have it. The meeting was arranged for neutral ground. An old warehouse on the industrial pier, abandoned for years but still structurally sound. Castellano, the same fixer who'd brokered their truce 7 years ago, served as mediator. Takeshi arrived with Tanaka and 4 guards. Vincent Zhao arrived with twice that. The 2 men stood on opposite sides of a rusted shipping container, 20 feet apart. Castellano stood between them, looking older and more tired than Takeshi remembered. "Gentlemen," the fixer began, "we're here to—" "I know why we're here," Vincent interrupted. His voice was smooth, controlled, but there was something coiled beneath it, something dangerous. Takeshi studied his rival. Vincent Zhao looked the same as he had 7 years ago. Sharp suit, cold eyes, the kind of stillness that came from absolute confidence. But there was something new in his expression, something hungry. "You've been hitting my operations," Takeshi said calmly. "Have I? Don't waste my time." Vincent smiled. "You're right. I have. And I'll keep hitting them until you give me what's mine." "I don't have anything of yours." "Liar." The word hung in the air between them. Takeshi's pulse didn't quicken. He'd known this moment was coming. "You have my daughter," Vincent said quietly. There it was. Takeshi's face remained blank. "I don't know what you're talking about." "A baby. Mixed race. Found near a dump 2 weeks ago. Wrapped in a scarf that belongs to my family." Vincent took a step forward. "You took her. And I want her back." Takeshi didn't move. "Even if I had found a child, which I'm not confirming, what makes you think she's yours?" "Because the woman who gave birth to her told me." "And you believe her?" "I had her followed. I know she left the baby where you'd find it. I know you took her to your estate. I know you've been keeping her there." Vincent's eyes were black and empty. "So let's skip the part where you lie to me and get to the part where you hand her over." Takeshi's hands were at his sides, loose and ready. "No," he said. The warehouse went very quiet. "No," Vincent repeated. "That child was abandoned, left to die. I saved her. That makes her mine. Blood makes her mine. Blood is an accident." Vincent's jaw tightened. "You have no idea what you're talking about." "I know exactly what I'm talking about." Takeshi's voice was cold. "You didn't want her. You told the mother to get rid of her. She refused. You walked away. You don't get to come back now because it's convenient." "That was before—" Vincent stopped himself. "Before what?" Vincent's face was stone. Takeshi understood then. Something had changed. Something that made the child valuable when she hadn't been before. "Whatever your reason," Takeshi said, "it doesn't matter. The child stays with me." Vincent took another step forward. His men shifted behind him. "You're making a mistake," Vincent said softly. "Probably. I will burn your empire to the ground. You can try." For a long moment the two men stared at each other. Then Vincent turned and walked away. His men followed. Castellano looked at Takeshi with something between pity and disbelief. "You just declared war," the old fixer said. "I know. Over a child that isn't even yours." Takeshi thought of the baby asleep in her crib at home, the way she'd gripped his finger, the small sound she made when she was content. "Yes," he said, "over a child that isn't even mine." The city began to fracture. Vincent's attacks intensified. He wasn't subtle anymore. He went after everything: shipments, safe houses, businesses, people. Takeshi's captains begged for permission to retaliate. Takeshi gave it, but only in measure, controlled, precise. It wasn't enough. Within days, bodies started appearing: Vincent's men, Takeshi's men, neutral parties caught in the crossfire. The police stayed out of it. They always did when the wolves were feeding. At the estate, Takeshi increased security. Guards on every entrance, cameras on every corner. No one in or out without clearance. The baby, still unnamed, seemed oblivious to the chaos. She ate, she slept, she grew. Takeshi visited her every night. One evening, as he sat in the rocking chair with her in his arms, his mother appeared in the doorway. "You should give her a name," Reiko said. "Not yet." "Why not?" Because naming her makes it real. It's already real, Takeshi. He looked down at the baby. She was asleep, her tiny mouth slightly open, one fist curled against her cheek. If I name her, he said quietly, I admit that I'm willing to die for her. And I'm not sure I'm ready to make that admission. Reiko crossed the room and placed her hand on his shoulder. You already have, she said. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Kenji knocked on Takeshi's study door late one night, his face pale. Boss, we have a problem. Takeshi looked up from the reports he'd been reading. What kind of problem? I've been digging into the scarf, trying to figure out how it ended up with the baby. And? It wasn't Vincent who left her at the dump. Takeshi went very still. What? Kenji stepped inside and closed the door behind him. The scarf was stolen, 3 months ago, from a shipment meant for Vincent's household. We thought it was just a random theft. But I found the manifest. It was taken by someone inside his organization. Who? I don't know yet. But whoever it was knew about the baby, knew about the mother, and they wanted the child found. By you specifically. Takeshi's mind raced. Someone is playing us. Yes. Vincent and me both. Yes. Why? Kenji shook his head. I don't know, but someone wanted this war, and they made sure it would start exactly the way it did. Takeshi stood and walked to the window. Outside, the estate was dark and quiet, but somewhere in the city, someone was watching. Waiting. Someone who had known that a baby wrapped in a Jiao scarf and left where Takeshi would find her would ignite a conflict that could tear the entire underworld apart. Find out who, Takeshi said. I'm trying. But boss, there's something else. Takeshi turned. Kenji's face was grim. The mother, Amara Ochieng. She didn't abandon the baby. How do you know? Because I found hospital records. She was attacked. Badly. 3 weeks before the baby was born. Someone tried to kill her. Takeshi's blood chilled. Who? I don't know. But they didn't finish the job. She survived, went into hiding, and when the baby came early, she left her somewhere safe. With me. Yes. Takeshi's thoughts spun. Amara hadn't abandoned her child. She'd saved her. Someone had tried to kill her, before the baby was even born. Someone had stolen the Jiao scarf. Someone had orchestrated everything. Where is she now? Takeshi asked. I don't know. But boss, if she's still alive, she's in danger. And if Vincent finds her first. The phone on Takeshi's desk rang. Both men froze. It was Takeshi's private line. The one only 5 people in the world had access to. He picked it up. Yes? A woman's voice, accented, frightened. My name is Amara Ochieng, she said. You have my daughter. Takeshi's grip on the phone tightened. I'm listening. I didn't abandon her. I was trying to save her. From the people who tried to kill me. From the people who want her dead. Who? I don't know. But they're not Vincent. And they're not you. Her voice cracked. Please. I just want to know she's safe. Takeshi looked at Kenji, then back out the window. She's safe, he said. Thank you. Amara's voice broke. Thank you, The line went dead. Takeshi stared at the phone. Then, from somewhere in the house, the baby began to cry. Not the usual cry. Something sharper, more urgent. Takeshi dropped the phone and ran. He reached the nursery in seconds. Haruna was standing by the window, her face white, the baby clutched to her chest. Boss! Takeshi looked past her. Outside, on the lawn, stood a figure, dressed in black, face obscured, watching. Then the figure turned and disappeared into the trees. Takeshi crossed to the window and stared into the darkness. His mother appeared behind him, her voice low and certain. It's begun, she said. Takeshi pulled his phone from his pocket and called Tanaka. Lock down the estate, no one in, no one out, and find that person. He hung up. Then he turned to Haruna and held out his arms. The nurse handed him the baby. Takeshi held her close, his heart pounding. The child looked up at him with those wide, dark eyes, and for the first time he spoke the thought he'd been refusing to admit. "You're mine," he whispered. "No matter whose blood you carry, you're mine." The baby made a small sound. Outside, the figure was gone. But Takeshi knew. This wasn't about Vincent anymore. Someone else was hunting, and they'd just announced themselves. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "She doesn't belong to you. She doesn't belong to him. She belongs to us." Takeshi stared at the screen. Then he looked down at the baby in his arms and made a decision. He would name her. He would claim her. And he would kill anyone who tried to take her. Amara Ochieng had learned to sleep with one eye open. Not literally, though some nights it felt that way. But her body had learned to stay alert even in unconsciousness, to jolt awake at the sound of footsteps in the hallway outside her room, at the creak of floorboards, at the whisper of fabric against skin. She'd been at St. Catherine's for 3 weeks now. Sister Lucia had given her a small room on the second floor. Bare walls, a single bed, a window that looked out onto the street. Safe, the nun had said. For now. Amara didn't believe in safe anymore. She sat on the edge of the bed in the darkness, her hands folded in her lap, and listened to the city breathe beyond the glass. Traffic, sirens, the low hum of lives being lived in rooms just like this one, stacked on top of each other like cards in a house that could collapse at any moment. Her daughter was out there somewhere, alive. The man on the phone, Takeshi Yamada, had confirmed it. His voice had been cold, controlled, but not cruel. He'd said the baby was safe. He'd said it like he meant it. But Amara had learned that men said a lot of things. Vincent had said he'd take care of her. The men who broke into her apartment had said they just wanted to talk. Words were cheap. Safety was expensive. She touched her ribs, still tender where they had been bruised. The cut on her lip had healed, but she could still taste blood sometimes when she bit down too hard. She thought about her daughter every waking moment. What did she look like now? Had she grown? Did she cry? Did she smile? Did someone hold her when she was afraid? Amara had held her for only 20 minutes. 20 minutes after 10 hours of labor in a bathtub. Alone, terrified, bleeding onto towels she'd stolen from a hotel. The baby had come early, so small, so impossibly fragile, and for the first few seconds, she hadn't cried. Amara had thought she was dead. Then the baby had gasped, a wet, choking sound, and wailed. Amara had held her against her chest, both of them shaking, and whispered promises she knew she couldn't keep. "I'll protect you. I'll keep you safe. I'll never let them hurt you." But she had. She'd wrapped her daughter in the only thing of value she owned, a silk scarf her mother had sent from Nairobi, embroidered with patterns that meant protection and strength, and placed her in a wicker basket. Then she'd left her at the dump near the industrial district. Not because she didn't love her, because she did. The men who'd attacked her had promised they'd come back, and if they found Amara with a baby, they'd finish what they'd started. So she'd left her daughter where someone would find her, where someone good would find her. She'd prayed harder than she'd ever prayed in her life, and somehow, impossibly, it had worked. Takeshi Yamada had found her, a crime lord, a killer, a man whose name people whispered like a curse, but he'd kept her alive. Amara didn't understand it, didn't trust it, but she believed it. For now. A knock on the door. Amara's pulse spiked. She stood, her hand instinctively reaching for the kitchen knife she kept tucked under her pillow. "Amara," Sister Lucia's voice. It's me. Amara exhaled and crossed to the door. She opened it just enough to see the nun's face, creased with worry, but kind. There's someone here to see you, Sister Lucia said quietly. Amara's blood chilled. Who? He says his name is Kenji. He says he works for the man who has your daughter. Amara's heart hammered. I'm not. I told him you might not want to see him. He said to give you this. Sister Lucia held out a photograph. Amara took it with shaking hands. It was a baby. Her baby. Asleep in a white crib, wearing a soft cotton onesie, her tiny fists curled beside her face. Alive. Healthy. Beautiful. Amara's eyes filled. She pressed the photo to her chest and tried to breathe. He's waiting downstairs, Sister Lucia said gently, but you don't have to see him if you don't want to. Amara looked at the photograph again. Then she wiped her eyes and nodded. I'll see him. Kenji was waiting in the shelter's small meeting room, standing by the window with his hands clasped behind his back. He was older than Amara expected, 60, maybe, with gray hair and a face that had seen too much and forgotten nothing. He turned when she entered. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Kenji bowed slightly. Miss Ochieng, thank you for agreeing to meet with me. Amara closed the door behind her and stayed near it, her arms folded. You work for Takeshi Yamada? I do. Why are you here? Kenji's expression was unreadable. To ask you some questions, and to offer you protection. I don't need protection. With respect, you do. The people who attacked you are still looking for you, and they won't stop until they find you. Amara's jaw tightened. Who are they? That's what I'm trying to find out. Kenji pulled a small notepad from his jacket pocket. You told my employer that you were attacked 3 weeks before your daughter was born. Can you tell me what happened? Everything you remember? Amara hesitated. Then she sat down in one of the plastic chairs and told him. It had been late, past midnight. She'd been asleep in her apartment when she heard the door splinter. She'd woken to find 2 men standing over her bed. They hadn't worn masks. That was the first thing that told her she wasn't going to survive. One of them had been tall, broad-shouldered, with a scar running from his temple to his jaw. The other had been smaller, wiry, with dead eyes. The tall one had grabbed her by the hair and dragged her out of bed. Where's the baby? He'd asked. I'm pregnant. She'd gasped. There is no baby yet. Don't lie to me. He'd hit her, hard, across the face. She'd tasted blood. The smaller one had started tearing through her apartment, pulling out drawers, ripping open closets, looking for something. She's not here, he'd said. Then we make sure she never is. The tall one had replied. He'd pulled a knife. Amara had fought. She'd clawed at his face, kicked, screamed, bit down on his hand hard enough to feel bone. He'd stabbed her. Not deep. Just enough to hurt. Enough to scare. You get rid of it, he'd said. Or we come back and do it for you. Then they'd left. Amara had lain on the floor, bleeding, until sunrise. Then she'd packed what she could carry and disappeared. Kenji listened without interrupting. When she finished, he was silent for a long moment. Then, did they say who sent them? No. Did you recognize them? No. Did they mention Vincent Zhao? Amara looked up sharply. No, but Vincent was the only person who knew I was pregnant. It had to be him. Kenji shook his head slowly. It wasn't. How do you know? Because Vincent didn't want the baby dead. He wanted her aborted. If he'd sent men, they would have dragged you to a clinic, not threatened you with a knife and left you alive. Amara's stomach turned. Then who? Someone who wanted the baby gone before she was born. Someone who knew about her. Someone inside Vincent's organization. Or someone watching it very closely. Why? I don't know yet. Kenji closed his notepad. But I will find out. Amara stood. I want to see her. I can't allow that. She's my daughter. She's in danger. And so are you. If you go to the estate, you'll lead them right to her. Them who? Amara's voice rose. Who is them? Kenji met her eyes. I don't know. But 3 nights ago, someone was watching the estate. Someone who doesn't work for Vincent. Someone who sent my employer a message. She belongs to us. Amara went cold. What does that mean? It means there's a third party, and they want your daughter for reasons we don't understand yet. Then let me help you find out. No. Why not? Because you're a civilian, and this is a war. Amara stepped forward, her hands clenched. I gave birth to her alone in a bathtub. I left her in a dump to save her life. I have lived this war. Don't you dare tell me I'm just a civilian. Kenji studied her for a long moment. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card. He handed it to her. If you remember anything else, any detail, no matter how small, call this number. Don't go anywhere alone. Don't trust anyone, and don't try to see your daughter. She needs me. She needs you alive. Kenji turned toward the door. Wait, Amara said. He paused. What's her name? Kenji looked back at her. His expression softened. Just slightly. He hasn't named her yet. Why not? I think because he knows that once he does, there's no going back. Amara didn't sleep that night. She sat on the bed with the photograph in her hands, staring at her daughter's face. She looked peaceful, safe, loved. Amara touched the image, tracing the curve of the baby's cheek. I'm sorry, she thought. I'm so sorry I couldn't keep you. But even as she thought it, something hardened in her chest. She wasn't going to wait. She wasn't going to hide. She was going to find out who wanted her daughter dead, and she was going to stop them. The next morning, Amara left the shelter. Sister Lucia tried to stop her. It's not safe, the nun said. Those men. I'll be careful. Amara, I have to do this. Sister Lucia looked at her for a long moment. Then she sighed and pressed a rosary into Amara's hand. Then God go with you. Amara walked out into the cold morning air and didn't look back. She had one lead, one person who might know something. The club where she used to work. The place where she'd met Vincent. The club didn't open until evening, but Amara knew the staff entrance in the alley would be unlocked during the day. She slipped inside and made her way down the narrow hallway to the manager's office. Rico, the day manager, a heavy-set man in his 50s with a gambling problem and a weakness for gossip, looked up when she knocked. His eyes widened. Amara? Jesus, I thought you were dead. Not yet. She closed the door behind her and sat down across from his desk. I need information. Rico leaned back in his chair, eyeing her warily. About what? About the night I met Vincent Zhao. Rico's face went pale. I don't know anything about... Yes, you do. You know everything that happens in this club. You know who comes, who goes, who pays. You knew Vincent was here that night. And you knew I went home with him. Rico swallowed. So? So someone knew I got pregnant. Someone who wasn't Vincent. Someone who sent men to my apartment to threaten me. I didn't tell anyone. I'm not saying you did. But someone was watching. Someone knew. And I need to know who. Rico was quiet for a long moment. Then he sighed and opened a drawer in his desk. He pulled out a tablet and tapped the screen. There were cameras that night, he said. In the bar. In the hallway. Management keeps footage for 3 months, then deletes it. But I keep copies. For insurance. He turned the tablet toward her. On the screen was surveillance footage from the night she'd met Vincent. The timestamp read 11:47 p.m. She watched herself behind the bar, pouring drinks, smiling, moving through the crowd. Then Vincent appeared. sitting at the bar, watching her. They talked, laughed, flirted, and in the corner of the frame, almost invisible, was another man. He was sitting alone at a table near the back, nursing a drink. He wasn't looking at Vincent, he was looking at her. "Who is that?" Amara asked. Rico zoomed in. The man's face was sharp, angular, East Asian, expensive suit, cold eyes. "I don't know," Rico said, "but he came in that night, ordered one drink, and watched you the entire time. Then when you and Vincent left, he left too." Amara's pulse quickened. "Did you see him again?" "No, but I ran his credit card receipt." Rico pulled up another screen. "He paid cash, but the reservation was under a name. Li Wei." Amara stared at the name. It meant nothing to her, but it meant something to someone. She took a photo of the screen with her phone. "Thank you." "Amara, be careful. Whoever this guy is, he's connected. And if he's involved with Vincent Zhao, I will." She stood and walked out. That night, Amara went back to her old apartment. She knew it was dangerous, stupid even, but she needed to see it, needed to remember. The building was dark, the hallway empty. Her door was still broken, hanging slightly ajar. She pushed it open and stepped inside. The apartment had been ransacked, furniture overturned, drawers pulled out. Everything she'd left behind, destroyed. But in the corner, half hidden under a pile of torn clothes, was her old backpack. She crossed the room and picked it up. Inside, untouched, was the burner phone she'd used to call Takeshi. And beneath it, wrapped in a torn piece of fabric, was a second scarf. Her breath caught. It was identical to the one she'd wrapped her daughter in. The same silk. The same embroidery. But it wasn't hers. She'd only had one scarf. Her mother had sent it from Kenya. A single, precious gift. So where had this one come from? Amara turned it over in her hands, studying the stitching. And then, she saw it. Hidden in the pattern, almost invisible unless you knew what to look for, was a symbol. Not Kenyan. Chinese. A serpent coiled around a lotus. Amara's blood turned to ice. This was Vincent's scarf, the Zhao family emblem. But it wasn't the one she'd used. Someone had planted it here. Someone wanted her to find it. Before she could process the thought, she heard footsteps in the hallway. Heavy, deliberate, coming toward her apartment. Amara shoved the scarf into her backpack and looked around frantically. The window. She ran to it and pushed it open just as the door slammed inward. Two men entered. Not the same men from before, but the same dead eyes. Amara climbed out onto the fire escape and ran. Behind her, she heard shouting. She didn't look back. She hit the street and kept running, her lungs burning, her heart hammering. She ran until she couldn't run anymore. Then she ducked into an alley and pulled out the burner phone. She dialed Kenji's number. He answered on the first ring. "Miss Ochieng?" "They found me," she gasped. "They're coming, I need—" "Where are you?" she told him. "Stay there. I'm sending someone." The line went dead. Amara pressed her back against the cold brick wall and tried to breathe. She looked down at the backpack in her hands. Inside was the second scarf, the planted scarf. Someone had set her up. Someone wanted her to look guilty. Someone wanted Vincent and Takeshi to think she was working with the enemy. But who? And why? Before she could think it through, headlights flooded the alley. A black car pulled up. The door opened. Kenji stepped out. "Get in." Amara hesitated. "Now, Miss Ochieng." She got in. The car pulled away and the alley disappeared behind them. They drove in silence for 20 minutes. Amara sat in the back seat, her backpack clutched to her chest, watching the city slide past. Finally, Kenji spoke. "You were told to stay at the shelter." "I had to know." "And what did you find?" Amara pulled the scarf from her backpack and handed it to him. Kenji studied it in the dim light from the dashboard. His expression didn't change, but his grip on the fabric tightened. Where did you get this? My apartment. It was hidden. Someone planted it there. When? I don't know. After I left. Before now. Kenji was silent for a long moment. Then he pulled out his phone and dialed. Boss, we have a problem. Amara couldn't hear the other end of the conversation, but Kenji's face grew grimmer with every second. Understood, he said finally. I'm bringing her to you. He hung up. Where are we going? Amara asked. Kenji met her eyes in the rearview mirror. To the estate. My employer wants to speak with you. Why? Because someone just tried to kidnap your daughter. Amara's world stopped. What? 20 minutes ago, 4 armed men breached the perimeter. They made it to the nursery before we stopped them. Is she? She's alive, unharmed. But Miss Ochieng? Kenji's voice was cold and certain. They weren't Vincent's men. Amara stared at him. Then whose? Kenji didn't answer, but the look in his eyes told her everything. Someone else was playing the game, and they'd just made their move. The Yamada estate rose out of the darkness like a fortress, high walls, iron gates, floodlights that turned night into day. Amara had never seen anything like it. The car pulled through the gates and stopped at the main entrance. Kenji opened her door. This way. Amara followed him inside. The house was massive, cold, beautiful in a way that felt intentional and joyless. They walked through hallways lined with art, past rooms filled with furniture that looked like it had never been sat on. Then Kenji stopped at a door and knocked. Come. The voice was low, controlled, edged with something dangerous. Kenji opened the door. Inside was an office, dark wood, floor-to-ceiling windows, a desk covered in papers and weapons. And standing behind the desk, holding a baby in his arms, was Takeshi Yamada. He looked up when Amara entered. For a long moment they stared at each other. Then Amara's eyes dropped to the baby. Her daughter. Alive. Safe. Awake. Looking at her. Amara's knees buckled. Takeshi stepped forward, still holding the baby, and his voice, when he spoke, was quieter than she expected. Sit down, Miss Ochieng. Amara sat. She couldn't stop staring at her daughter. The baby blinked, made a small sound. Amara's eyes filled. Can I? Her voice broke. Can I hold her? Takeshi hesitated. Then he crossed the room and placed the baby in her arms. Amara pulled her daughter to her chest and broke. She wept, silent, shaking sobs that came from somewhere so deep she didn't know she had it in her. The baby made a soft sound and curled against her. Takeshi stepped back, his face unreadable. When Amara finally looked up, her vision blurred with tears. Takeshi was watching her with something that might have been pity or respect. They tried to take her, he said quietly. Amara nodded. Kenji told me. Do you know who? No, but I found this. She handed him the scarf. Takeshi studied it, his expression darkening. This is a Zhao scarf. I know, but it's not mine. Someone planted it in my apartment. They wanted me to find it. Or they wanted someone else to. Takeshi looked at Kenji. Analysis? Someone is framing her, Kenji said, making it look like she's working with Vincent. Or setting her up to take the fall for something. But why? No one answered. Then, from the doorway, a voice. Because she's the key. They all turned. Standing in the doorway was an elderly woman in a dark robe, her silver hair loose around her shoulders. Takeshi's mother. She stepped into the room, her eyes on the baby in Amara's arms. The child is not the prize, Reiko said quietly. She's the trigger. Whoever controls the mother controls the narrative, and whoever controls the narrative controls the war. Amara stared at her. I don't understand. Reiko's gaze shifted to her son. Someone wants Vincent and Takeshi to destroy each other, and they're using the child and you to make it happen. Takeshi's jaw clenched. Who? Someone who benefits from chaos. Before anyone could respond, Tanaka burst into the room. Boss, Vincent Zhao is at the gate. Takeshi went very still. What? He's demanding to see you. He says if you don't come out, he's coming in. How many men? 20. Armed. Takeshi looked at the baby in Amara's arms, then at his mother, then at Kenji. Get them to the safe room. Now. Boss! Now. Kenji moved to Amara's side. Come with me. Amara stood, still holding the baby. What's happening? War, Takeshi said quietly. Then he walked out of the room. Kenji led Amara through the house, down a narrow staircase, into a reinforced room deep in the basement. The door sealed behind them with a heavy thunk. Amara sat on the floor, her back against the wall, her daughter in her arms. Above them, she heard shouting, then gunfire, then silence. The baby began to cry. Amara held her close and whispered the same promise she'd made in that bathtub 3 weeks ago. I'll protect you. But this time, she didn't know if it was true. Vincent Zhao stood at the gates of the Yamada estate with 20 armed men behind him and murder in his heart. The floodlights turned the night into false day. Guards lined the wall. He counted at least 15, probably more hidden in the shadows. Rifles, shotguns, the kind of firepower that said, "Try me." He was trying. Open the gate, he called out. No response. Vincent's jaw tightened. Behind him, Chen shifted his weight, one hand resting on the pistol at his hip. Boss? Chen said quietly. This is a mistake. Noted. If we go in there, I'm not going in. He's coming out. And if he doesn't? Vincent smiled. It was the smile of a man who had stopped caring about consequences. Then we make him. The intercom at the gate crackled to life. Mr. Zhao. Takeshi's voice, calm, measured. You're trespassing. You have something that belongs to me. I have nothing of yours. My daughter. Silence. Then, the child is under my protection. The child is my blood. Blood doesn't make you a father? Vincent's hands clenched. Open the gate, Yamada, or I open it myself. Another pause. Then the gate began to slide open. Vincent's men tensed, weapons half raised. Through the opening walked Takeshi Yamada, alone, unarmed, dressed in a black suit that looked like it cost more than most people's cars. He stopped 10 feet from Vincent. The two men faced each other in the glare of the floodlights. You've got 30 seconds, Takeshi said. Vincent took a step forward. You stole my child. I saved your child. You wanted her dead. That was before. Vincent stopped himself. Before what? Takeshi's eyes were cold. Before you learned you couldn't have any others? Before she became valuable? Vincent's face went to stone. How did you? I know everything about you, Zhao. I know about the shooting, the infertility, the mother. I know you demanded an abortion and she refused. I know you walked away. Takeshi's voice dropped. You don't get to come back now because it's convenient. Convenient? Vincent's voice rose. She's my daughter, my blood, my legacy. She's the only... He stopped, breathing hard. For a moment, something almost human flickered across his face. Then it was gone. Give her to me, he said quietly, and we can end this. No, I'm not asking. Neither am I. Vincent took another step forward. They were close enough now that he could see the ice in Takeshi's eyes. The absolute certainty. You think you can protect her? Vincent asked. From me? From my entire organization? Yes. You're a fool. Maybe. Takeshi didn't blink. But she's mine now, and I don't surrender what's mine. Vincent's hand moved toward his jacket. Instantly, every guard on the wall raised their weapon. Chen and the other men behind Vincent did the same. The night held its breath. Then Takeshi spoke, his voice cutting through the tension like a blade. If you draw that weapon, you'll be dead before it clears leather. Your men will die next, and my men will drive your corpse back to your territory and leave it in the street like garbage. Vincent's hand stopped. But you won't do that, Takeshi continued, because you're not stupid. You know that if you kill me, every alliance I have will come for you. You know that war costs money, lives, territory, and you know that even if you win, you'll lose more than you gain. Then what do you suggest? Vincent asked, his voice dangerously soft. I suggest you go home, bury your dead, lick your wounds, and accept that the child is exactly where she needs to be. Vincent stared at him for a long moment. Then he laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. You think this is about pride? About ego? Isn't it? It's about blood. Vincent's eyes burned. That child carries my DNA, my history, 7 generations of my family. She's the only proof I'll ever have that I existed, that I mattered. You want to take that from me? For the first time, Takeshi's expression shifted. Something almost like understanding. I lost my wife 3 weeks ago, he said quietly. Cancer. I watched her die over the course of 6 months. Every day, a little more gone. By the end, she didn't remember my name. Vincent said nothing. I had nothing left, Takeshi continued. No children, no legacy, just an empire built on fear and violence. And then I found that baby. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I had a reason to be something other than what I am. He met Vincent's eyes. So yes, I understand what you're feeling, but understanding doesn't change the answer. She stays with me. Vincent's jaw worked. Then, slowly, he stepped back. This isn't over, he said. I know. Vincent turned and walked back toward his men. At the car, he paused and looked back. One more thing, Yamada. Yes? Someone tried to take the child tonight, before I got here. Takeshi went very still. How do you know? Because I've had eyes on your estate since the day you took her, and 20 minutes ago I watched 4 men breach your perimeter. They got to the nursery. Your people stopped them, but they weren't mine. Then whose? Vincent's expression was unreadable. That's what we need to find out. Because whoever they are, they want her even more than we do. He got into the car. The convoy pulled away, disappearing into the night. Takeshi stood at the gate for a long moment, watching them go. Then he turned and walked back toward the house. Tanaka was waiting in the foyer, his face pale. Boss, the men we captured. You need to hear this. The basement interrogation room smelled like blood and sweat. 3 men sat zip-tied to metal chairs, their faces bruised and swollen. The 4th had died during the breach, took a bullet to the throat and bled out before anyone could question him. Takeshi entered the room with Tanaka at his side. The prisoners looked up. 2 of them seemed scared. The 3rd, a lean, scarred man in his 40s, just looked tired. Who sent you? Takeshi asked. No response. Takeshi pulled a chair from the corner and sat down facing them. He folded his hands in his lap and waited. Silence. Then the scarred man spoke. You're asking the wrong question. Takeshi's eyes narrowed. What's the right question? Why do we want the child? Why? The man smiled. It was a sad, broken thing. Because she's not yours. And she's not Zhao's. She belongs to someone who's been waiting a very long time. Who? Someone you've never heard of. Someone who's been in this city longer than either of you. Someone who remembers what it was like before men like you carved it into pieces. Takeshi leaned forward. I'm listening. The scarred man's smile faded. The child's mother, Amara. You think she's just some bartender? Some random woman who got unlucky? Isn't she? No. The man's voice dropped. Her family has blood older than Vincent Zhao's empire, older than yours. They were kings in East Africa before the British came. Warriors. Leaders. And when they were scattered, they carried their legacy with them. Takeshi's pulse quickened. What legacy? Prophecy. The word hung in the air. Tanaka shifted uncomfortably. The scarred man continued. Amara's grandmother was a seer. She saw the future. Saw that her great-granddaughter would give birth to a child who would unite empires or destroy them. A child born of two worlds. A child who would bring either peace or annihilation. Takeshi's blood chilled. That's superstition. Is it? The man's eyes burned. You found that baby where your mother's dream told you to look. Vincent Zhao lost the ability to have children the same month Amara got pregnant. The scarf she wrapped the baby in ended up exactly where it needed to be to start a war between the two most powerful men in this city. You think that's all coincidence? Takeshi said nothing. Someone has been orchestrating this from the beginning, the scarred man said. Not Vincent, not you. Someone who believes the prophecy is real. Someone who wants to control the child before she becomes what she's meant to be. Who? The man smiled again. I told you. Someone you've never heard of. Then give me a name. I don't know it. None of us do. We take orders through intermediaries, dead drops, encrypted messages. But I know what they want. And what's that? To raise the child themselves. Away from you. Away from Vincent. Away from her mother. To shape her into exactly what they need her to be. Takeshi stood. And if I refuse? The scarred man's smile widened. Then they'll burn the city down to get her. Takeshi left the interrogation room and found his mother waiting in the hallway. Reiko stood with her hands folded, her face serene. You heard? Takeshi asked. Yes. Do you believe it? Does it matter what I believe? Takeshi rubbed his face. Mother. You asked me once if I believed in fate, Reiko said quietly. I told you that I believe in patterns, that the universe moves in circles, not lines, that everything that happens has happened before and will happen again. What does that have to do with this? Everything. Reiko stepped closer. That child upstairs is not an accident. You know this. You've known it from the moment you found her. And whether the prophecy is real or not doesn't matter. What matters is that people believe it's real, and belief makes people dangerous. Then what do I do? Reiko looked at her son with eyes that had seen too much and understood more. You do what you've always done, she said. You protect what's yours. In the safe room. Amara sat on the floor with her daughter in her arms. The baby had stopped crying. Now she just stared up at her mother with those wide, dark eyes, as if memorizing her face. Amara touched the baby's cheek. Her skin was so soft, so perfect. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry I left you. The baby made a small sound. Amara's eyes filled. I thought I was protecting you. I thought if I left you somewhere safe, someone good would find you. And they did. But now, the door opened. Kenji stepped inside. Miss Ochieng, we're moving you. Where? Somewhere safer. The estate is compromised. What about? Amara looked down at her daughter. She's coming with you. Relief flooded through her. And Takeshi? He's staying. He needs to handle Vincent and the others. The others? Kenji's expression was grim. There are more players in this game than we realized, and they all want your daughter. Amara stood, holding the baby close. Why? I don't know, but my employer is going to find out. He led her through the house, up a back staircase, to a garage where a black SUV was waiting. Takeshi stood beside it. When he saw Amara, he walked over. For a moment, the two of them just looked at each other. Then Takeshi looked down at the baby. I need to ask you something, he said quietly. What? Your grandmother. Was she a seer? Amara went very still. How do you know about that? Answer the question. Yes, she was. My family, we have a long history of women who see things, dreams, visions, the future. Did she see this? Amara's throat tightened. She died before I left Kenya, but she told my mother something before she passed. She said that I would have a daughter, that the daughter would be born in a city of dragons, and that she would either save the world or end it. Takeshi's jaw clenched. Do you believe that? He asked. Amara looked down at her daughter. So small, so innocent. I don't know, she said honestly. But I know people will kill for her if they do. Takeshi nodded slowly. Then we keep her hidden. Keep you both hidden. Until I can end this. How? By finding out who's pulling the strings. Amara met his eyes. And then? Then I cut them. He stepped back and nodded to Kenji. Take them to the safe house. No one knows the location except you and me. Keep them there until I call. Yes, boss. Amara climbed into the SUV, still holding the baby. Through the window, she watched Takeshi walk back toward the house. Shoulders back. Hands loose. Every inch the predator he was. The SUV pulled away. And for the first time in weeks, Amara let herself hope. Maybe they would survive this. Maybe. The war began in earnest the next morning. Vincent hit 4 of Takeshi's operations simultaneously: warehouses, shipments, safe houses. Takeshi retaliated with surgical precision, taking out 3 of Vincent's captains in coordinated strikes. Bodies piled up. The police issued statements about gang violence. The mayor called for calm. The newspapers ran stories about organized crime spiraling out of control. No one cared. This was the city's nature. Blood in the streets. Power in the shadows. Business as usual. But beneath the war between Vincent and Takeshi, something else was happening. The third faction was moving. Kenji discovered it first. A pattern in the attacks. Certain shipments being intercepted. Certain people disappearing. Certain information being leaked. Someone was feeding both sides intelligence. Someone was making sure the war escalated. Someone wanted Vincent and Takeshi too busy killing each other to notice what was really happening. Kenji brought his findings to Takeshi late one night. It's deliberate, he said, spreading documents across the desk. Every move we make, they counter. Every move Vincent makes, we counter. Someone is orchestrating this, keeping us balanced, keeping us fighting. Who? I don't know. But I found something. He pulled up a photo on his tablet. The surveillance image from the club. The man watching Amara the night she met Vincent. Li Wei. I ran his face through every database I could access, Kenji said. Nothing. No records. No criminal history. No trace. Ghost? No. Ghosts leave shadows. This man doesn't exist, which means someone scrubbed him. Someone with resources. Someone connected. Takeshi stared at the image. Find him. I'm trying, but boss, there's something else. What? I cross-referenced his appearance at the club with other security footage from that week. Restaurants, hotels, traffic cameras. Kenji swiped to another image. Li Wei, sitting at a table in an upscale restaurant. Across from him was a woman. East African, beautiful, elegant. Who is she? Takeshi asked. I don't know, but I sent this photo to Amara. And? Kenji's face was grim. She recognized her. It's her aunt. Her mother's sister. She's been living in the city for 5 years. Amara didn't even know. Takeshi's blood ran cold. Family. Yes. Does Amara know what she does? Who she works for? No. She says they haven't spoken since she left Kenya. But boss, if her aunt is connected to Li Wei, and Li Wei was watching Amara the night she met Vincent. Then this was planned from the beginning. Kenji nodded. Takeshi stood and walked to the window. The city sprawled below him, burning quietly in a dozen different places. They wanted her to meet Vincent, he said slowly. Wanted her to get pregnant. Wanted the baby to be born. Wanted her to leave the child where I'd find it. Wanted Vincent and me to go to war. Yes. But why? I think, Kenji hesitated. I think they believe the prophecy is real, and they want to control the child before she becomes whatever she's meant to be. Takeshi turned. What does that mean? I don't know. But boss, if they're willing to start a war to get her, what do you think they'll do when the war doesn't work? Before Takeshi could answer, his phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You've kept her long enough. Time to give her back. Or we take her ourselves. Takeshi's jaw clenched. He showed Kenji the screen. Trace it. Already on it. Kenji worked on his tablet, his fingers flying across the screen. Then he stopped. His face went pale. Boss? What? The text. It pinged off a tower near the safe house. Takeshi's world stopped. They found her. How is that possible? No one knows. Someone does. Takeshi was already moving, grabbing his jacket, his gun. Call the safe house. Now. Kenji dialed. It rang, and rang, and rang. No answer. Get the car, Takeshi said, his voice dead calm. They were out the door in seconds. The safe house was a nondescript building in a quiet neighborhood. 2 stories, brick facade, security system that cost more than the house itself. Takeshi arrived with Kenji and 6 men. The front door was open. No guards. No sound. Takeshi drew his weapon and entered. The living room was empty. No signs of struggle. No blood. The kitchen? Empty. The bedrooms? Empty. Then Takeshi saw it. On the dining room table, a single piece of paper. He picked it up. Written in elegant script. The child is not yours. She is not his. She belongs to something greater than both of you. Stop looking, or you will all burn. Beneath the note was a photograph. Amara, holding the baby. Both alive, both unharmed, both gone. Takeshi's hands shook. He pulled out his phone and called Vincent Zhao. Vincent answered immediately. What? They took her, Takeshi said. Who? The child and the mother. Someone took them. Silence. Then. When? Tonight. From my safe house. Who knew the location? Only Kenji and me. Then how? I don't know. But Vincent. Takeshi closed his eyes. We're fighting the wrong war. More silence. Then Vincent's voice, low and deadly. Where are you? The safe house. East District. I'm coming. Vincent. If we're going to find her, we do it together. Because whoever took her wants us both dead, and I don't intend to give them the satisfaction. The line went dead. Takeshi stood in the empty house, holding the photograph of the child he'd saved, the child he'd protected, the child he'd begun to love. Gone. Behind him, Kenji spoke quietly. Boss, what do we do? Takeshi looked at the note again. She belongs to something greater than both of you. He thought of his mother's words, the prophecy, the patterns. Then he folded the note and put it in his pocket. We get her back, he said. How? Takeshi's eyes were cold and certain. By becoming the monsters they think we are. Vincent Zhao arrived 20 minutes later with Chen and a small team. He walked into the safe house and found Takeshi standing in the living room, staring at nothing. For a moment the 2 men didn't speak. Then Vincent crossed the room and stood beside him. Show me, he said. Takeshi handed him the note. Vincent read it. His expression didn't change. Who do you think they are? He asked. I don't know. But they've been watching us from the beginning, orchestrating everything, the meeting at the club, the pregnancy, the abandonment, the war. Why? Because they believe she's special, prophesied, and they want to control her. Vincent looked at the photograph of the baby, his daughter, the only legacy he would ever have. Then we find them, he said quietly. We find them, and we kill every single one of them. Takeshi met his eyes. For the first time, the two rivals were in perfect agreement. Kenji found a lead, Takeshi said. Amara's aunt. She's connected to this. We find her, we find the people who took the child. Where is she? We don't know yet, but we will. Vincent nodded. Then he extended his hand. Takeshi looked at it. Then he took it. The handshake was brief, businesslike, but it sealed something neither of them had thought possible. An alliance. We end this together, Vincent said. Yes. And when it's over? Takeshi's smile was cold. Then we go back to being enemies. Good. The two men turned and walked out of the safe house side by side. Behind them, Kenji and Chen exchanged glances. This was either going to save the city, or burn it to the ground. Amara woke to silence. Not the comfortable silence of sleep, but the heavy, deliberate silence of being watched. She opened her eyes and found herself in a room she didn't recognize. White walls, hardwood floors, a single window with gauze curtains that let in soft morning light. The bed beneath her was expensive. Egyptian cotton, down pillows, everything clean. Sterile. Wrong. Her daughter. Amara sat up fast, her heart hammering. The baby was gone. She threw off the blankets and stood, her legs shaky. She was wearing clothes she didn't remember putting on, soft linen pants, a cotton shirt. Someone had undressed her, changed her. The thought made her skin crawl. She crossed to the door and tried the handle. Locked. Hello? She called out. Her voice sounded thin, frightened. No response. She pressed her ear to the door and listened. Footsteps. Distant. Then nothing. Amara turned and surveyed the room. No phone. No personal belongings. Just the bed, a chair, a small dresser, the window. She went to it and looked out. 3 stories up. Below was a manicured garden. Roses, stone paths, a fountain. Beyond the garden was a high wall topped with iron spikes. And beyond that, nothing. No city skyline, no buildings. Just trees stretching into the distance. Wherever she was, it wasn't the city. The door unlocked with a soft click. Amara spun around. A woman entered. East African, maybe 50, elegant in a way that spoke of old money and older traditions. She wore a navy dress and carried herself with the quiet authority of someone used to being obeyed. Amara's blood ran cold. Aunt Kamaria, she whispered. The woman smiled. It was warm, genuine, completely incongruous with the locked door and stolen child. Amara, you're awake. Good. Where is she? Amara's voice cracked. Where's my daughter? Safe, being cared for. Bring her to me. Soon. Now. Kamaria's smile didn't falter. Sit down, Amara. We need to talk. I'm not sitting down until you bring me my baby. Kamaria sighed, the kind of sigh a teacher gives a difficult student. Then she turned and gestured to someone in the hallway. A moment later, a nurse entered carrying the baby. Amara's knees nearly buckled. She crossed the room in 3 strides and took her daughter from the nurse's arms, clutching her to her chest. The baby was clean, fed, content. She made a small sound and settled against Amara's shoulder. Relief flooded through her so completely she thought she might collapse. There, Kamaria said gently. You see? She's fine. Amara looked up, her eyes burning. You kidnapped us. I saved you, both of you. From what? From men who would use her as a weapon, from a war that would have killed you both. Kamaria stepped closer. Amara, do you have any idea what you've stumbled into? What that child represents? She's my daughter. That's all she represents. No. Kamaria's voice hardened. She's so much more than that. And deep down, you know it. Your grandmother knew it. Your mother knew it. And now you know it too. Amara held the baby tighter. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. Kamaria sat in the chair and folded her hands in her lap. Your grandmother was a seer, one of the last true seers of our lineage, and before she died, she had a vision. She saw you. She saw a city of dragons. She saw a child born of two worlds who would either unite them or destroy them. That's superstition. Is it? Kamaria's eyes were sharp. Then why did Vincent Zhao lose his ability to have children the same month you conceived? Why did Takeshi Yamada's wife die the same week you gave birth? Why did you wrap your daughter in a scarf that would be recognized by both men? Why did everything fall into place exactly as it needed to? Amara's hands trembled. Coincidence? There is no such thing. Kamaria leaned forward. This was meant to happen, Amara. Your grandmother saw it, and she made me promise, made your mother and me both promise, that when the child came, we would protect her. We would make sure she fulfilled her destiny. What destiny? Kamaria smiled. To end the cycle. What cycle? Of violence, of empires built on blood, of men like Vincent Zhao and Takeshi Yamada carving the world into pieces and calling it order. Kamaria's voice was soft, but certain. Your daughter isn't meant to be raised by criminals. She's meant to be raised by us, by family, by people who understand what she is. And what is she? A bridge between the old world and the new, between Africa and Asia, between the violence of men and the wisdom of women. Kamaria stood. We've been preparing for her, Amara. For years. We have resources, protection, a place far from this city where she can grow up safe. Loved. Free from the wars of lesser men. Amara stared at her aunt. You're insane. No. I'm awake. And you need to wake up too. Kamaria stepped closer. Those men, Yamada and Zhao, they don't love your daughter. They love the idea of her. Yamada sees her as a replacement for the wife he lost. Zhao sees her as the only proof his bloodline will continue. Neither of them sees her for what she really is. And what's that? A child who deserves better than to be a pawn in someone else's war. Amara looked down at her daughter. The baby was sleeping now, her tiny face peaceful. She deserves her mother, Amara said quietly. Yes, she does. And she'll have you. If you stay. Amara looked up sharply. What? Stay with us. Raise her here, away from the city, away from the violence. We have everything you need. Safety, family, a future. And if I refuse? Kamaria's expression didn't change, but something cold flickered in her eyes. Then we'll keep her anyway, and you'll never see her again. The words landed like a blow. Amara's grip on the baby tightened. You can't. I can. I will. Because this is bigger than you, Amara. Bigger than me. This is about legacy. About breaking cycles that have been turning for centuries. And I will not let sentiment stand in the way of that. Kamaria walked to the door. You have until tonight to decide. Stay and raise your daughter in peace. Leave and lose her forever. She stepped into the hallway. The door closed. The lock clicked. Amara stood alone in the white room, holding her daughter, and tried not to scream. Takeshi and Vincent sat across from each other in a warehouse on neutral ground. Between them was a map of the city, marked with red pins for Takeshi's operations and blue pins for Vincent's. Chen and Kenji stood nearby, watching their bosses with the wary attention of men who knew this alliance was as fragile as wet paper. Amara's aunt, Takeshi said, pointing to a notation on the map. Kamaria Ochieng. She's been in the city for 5 years, works as a consultant for an international investment firm. Clean record. No connections to organized crime. On paper, Vincent said. Yes. On paper. Takeshi pulled up a file on his tablet. But Kenji dug deeper. She has offshore accounts, properties in 3 countries, and a pattern of travel that suggests she's been building something. What kind of something? A network. People who believe in the prophecy, who think Amara's daughter is the key to something larger. Vincent's jaw tightened. How many people? We don't know. But enough to have resources. Enough to orchestrate everything that's happened. And Li Wei? We're still looking for him, but we found something else. Kenji stepped forward and placed a photograph on the table. It showed Kamaria sitting at a cafe table with 3 other people, 2 men and a woman, all East African or Asian, all dressed well, all watching the camera like they knew it was there. This was taken 6 months ago, Kenji said, before Amara got pregnant, before any of this started, which means they were planning this long before the child was conceived. Vincent stared at the photograph. Who are they? We don't know yet, but we're working on it. Takeshi leaned back in his chair. They wanted the baby born. They wanted her to have both of our blood in her orbit. Mine through circumstance, yours through genetics. They wanted us to go to war. And they wanted us too busy killing each other to notice them taking her. Why? Because they believe she's the future. And they want to control the future. Vincent's hands clenched. Then we find them. And we take her back. It's not that simple. Why not? Takeshi met his eyes. Because they have leverage. What leverage? Amara. If we move on them, they could kill her. Or disappear with both of them. We'd never find them. Vincent's face was stone. Then what do you suggest? We wait. We gather intelligence. We find their location. And then we move. Fast. Precise. Overwhelming. How long? However long it takes. Vincent stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the concrete. I don't have time. Every day that child is with them, she's being molded into something she's not. Every day is a day I lose her. And if we move too soon, we lose her forever. Vincent's hands were shaking. For the first time, Takeshi saw something other than control in the other man's eyes. Fear. I can't lose her, Vincent said quietly. She's all I have left. Takeshi understood. Because he felt the same way. The baby had stopped being a symbol or a prize or a piece in a game. She'd become theirs. And they would burn the world to get her back. We won't lose her, Takeshi said. But we do this right. We do this smart. Vincent took a slow breath. Then he nodded. Fine. But we move as soon as we have a location. Agreed. The 2 men stood facing each other, rivals who had become something like allies, bound together by the love of a child neither of them could claim. Chen's phone buzzed. He looked at the screen, and his face went pale. Boss, he said, looking at Vincent, we have a problem. What kind of problem? Chen turned the phone around. On the screen was a video. Live feed. It showed a white room, a bed, a chair, and Amara, sitting on the bed, holding the baby. A woman's voice spoke over the feed, accented, calm. Mr. Zhao, Mr. Yamada, I believe we need to talk. The video call was routed through so many proxies that tracing it was impossible. But the woman on the screen, Kamaria, didn't seem concerned about being found. She sat in a high-backed chair, hands folded, expression serene. Behind her, barely visible in the background, was Amara, still holding the baby, still alive. You have something of mine, Vincent said, his voice dangerously soft. No, Kamaria replied. I have something that was never yours. She's my daughter. She's a child who happens to carry your DNA. That doesn't make her yours. Takeshi leaned forward. What do you want? I want you to stop looking for us. I want you to end your war. I want you to walk away and let us raise this child the way she was meant to be raised. And if we refuse? Kamaria's smile was patient. Then you'll never see her again. Or the mother. You're threatening us, Vincent said. I'm offering you a choice. The child stays with us, where she'll be safe, loved, and raised to fulfill her purpose. Or you continue this war, and she dies in the crossfire. Either way, she's not going back to either of you. Takeshi's jaw clenched. What purpose? To break the cycle, to end the violence that men like you perpetuate. To build something better. By kidnapping her? By saving her from you. Vincent's hands were flat on the table, his knuckles white. Where is she? Somewhere you'll never find. Try me. Kamaria's expression didn't change. You have 24 hours to decide. After that, we disappear. You'll never hear from us again. You'll never see the child again. She'll grow up believing her father was a monster and her mother was too weak to protect her. You can't. I can. I have. The only question is whether you're smart enough to accept it. The screen went black. Vincent slammed his fist on the table. The sound echoed through the warehouse. Find her, he snarled at Chen. I don't care what it takes. Find her. We're trying, boss, but... Find her. Chen nodded and stepped away, already making calls. Takeshi sat in silence, his mind working through the variables. 24 hours. It wasn't enough time. Unless... He looked at Kenji. The properties, the offshore accounts. Do we have addresses? 12 properties across 4 countries. We're narrowing it down, but... How many are outside the city? Kenji pulled up his tablet. 6. But boss? They could be at any of them. Or none of them. No. Takeshi's eyes narrowed. They're close. They have to be. They've been watching us. Orchestrating things. They wouldn't risk being too far away. Then it's one of the 6. Yes. Vincent looked up. Which one? Takeshi studied the map. 6 properties. 6 possibilities. Then his mother's words came back to him. Patterns. The universe moves in circles, not lines. He looked at the locations of the properties. 5 were scattered randomly, but 1, a compound in the hills north of the city, was positioned almost exactly where Miharu's grave was located. Where his mother had first told him about the dream. Where this had all begun. There, Takeshi said, pointing. Vincent looked at the location. You're sure? No, but it's the best guess we have. That's not good enough. It's all we have. Vincent stared at the map for a long moment. Then he stood. We go tonight. It could be a trap. I don't care. Takeshi stood as well. If we're wrong, then we keep looking. But if we're right, and we wait, they disappear. And we lose her forever. Takeshi understood. Sometimes you had to bet everything on instinct. We'll need men, weapons, a plan. I have all 3. So do I. The 2 men looked at each other. Then Takeshi extended his hand. Vincent took it. We end this tonight, Vincent said. Yes. And if they hurt her, they won't live to regret it. The compound in the hills was surrounded by forest and protected by high walls and security cameras. Takeshi and Vincent approached from different directions. Takeshi from the east with 12 men, Vincent from the west with 15. They moved through the trees in silence, weapons ready, every sense on high alert. At the perimeter, they rendezvoused. Takeshi crouched beside Vincent behind a fallen log and studied the compound through night vision binoculars. 4 guards on the wall, 2 at the gate, at least 3 inside that I can see. Light resistance, Vincent said. Too light. You think it's a trap? I think they want us here. Vincent's jaw tightened. Then let's give them what they want. They split up again. Takeshi's team taking the east wall, Vincent's team taking the west. At Takeshi's signal, they moved. The guards went down quietly. Suppressed shots. Precise placements. Takeshi's men were professionals. So were Vincent's. Within 5 minutes, they'd breached the perimeter and were inside the compound. The main house was dark except for a single light on the second floor. Takeshi and Vincent entered together, their men covering them. The house was silent. Empty. Too empty. They climbed the stairs, weapons raised. At the top was a hallway. A single door, slightly ajar. Light spilled from inside. Takeshi went first. He pushed the door open. Inside was the white room from the video feed. The bed, the chair. And sitting in the chair was Kamaria. Alone. No Amara. No baby. She smiled when she saw them. Gentlemen, right on time. Vincent raised his gun. Where are they? Safe. Where? Not here. Takeshi stepped forward. You said we had 24 hours. I lied. Kamaria stood. Did you really think I'd keep them in the same place I showed you? I'm not an amateur. Vincent's finger tightened on the trigger. Last chance. You won't shoot me. If you do, you'll never find them. Try me. Kamaria's smile widened. You're not a father, Mr. Zhao. You're a gangster who wants an heir. There's a difference. Something in Vincent's eyes flickered. Kamaria turned to Takeshi. And you? You're not a father either. You're a grieving widower who wants a replacement for the woman you lost. The child isn't a person to you. She's a bandage for a wound that will never heal. Takeshi's hand tightened on his weapon. Neither of you deserves her, Kamaria said quietly. Neither of you is capable of loving her for who she is, rather than what she represents. So I'm taking that choice away from you. Where is she? Takeshi asked, his voice deadly calm. I told you. Somewhere you'll never find. Then you're no use to us. Takeshi raised his gun. Kamaria didn't flinch. Shoot me, and the person watching this place will know, and they'll disappear with the child and the mother. You'll never see them again. Takeshi hesitated. Kamaria's expression softened. I'm not your enemy. I'm trying to save that child from becoming what you've both become. Can't you see that? You're a kidnapper, Vincent said, and you're murderers, thieves. Men who build empires on suffering. Kamaria shook her head. I'm giving that child a chance to be something better. Something clean. Isn't that worth more than your pride? For a long moment no one spoke. Then Takeshi lowered his gun. No, he said quietly. Kamaria frowned. No? You're wrong. About both of us. Takeshi's voice was steady. I don't want a replacement for my wife. I want to give that child the life Maharu and I never got to build. A life where she's safe, loved, protected. Not because of what she represents, but because she deserves it. He looked at Vincent. And he doesn't want an heir. He wants a daughter. Someone to outlive him. Someone to remember him as more than just a criminal. Someone to prove that his life meant something beyond fear and blood. Vincent said nothing, but his jaw clenched. Kamaria studied them both. Pretty words, she said, but words are cheap. Then let us prove it, Takeshi said. Give us a chance. Why should I? Because if you're right, if we're not capable of being what she needs, then we'll fail. And when we do, you can take her. But if you're wrong, and you keep her from us out of assumption rather than evidence, then you're no better than the men you claim to despise. Kamaria was silent for a long time. Then she walked to the window and looked out at the dark forest. There's a man, she said quietly. Li Wei. He was hired to orchestrate this, to make sure you found the child, to make sure you went to war, to make sure the child would eventually end up with us. Where is he? Vincent asked. I don't know. He disappeared after the last payment. But he knows where Amara and the baby are, and he's the only one who does. Why are you telling us this? Kamaria turned. Because I'm tired. Tired of games. Tired of prophecies and plans and people treating children like symbols. She met Takeshi's eyes. Find leeway. Prove to me that you're willing to work together. Prove that you're more than what I think you are. And maybe, I'll tell you where they are. Takeshi and Vincent exchanged glances. Then Takeshi nodded. How do we find him? Kamaria pulled a piece of paper from her pocket and handed it to him. On it was an address. He'll be there tomorrow night, 9 p.m. alone. How do you know? Because I arranged it. Vincent stepped forward. If this is a trap, it's not a trap. It's a test. Kamaria walked to the door. Bring him to me alive. Prove you can show restraint. Prove you can think beyond violence, and I'll consider your request. She left. The room fell silent. Takeshi looked at the address. Vincent looked at him. Do we trust her? Vincent asked. No. Then why are we doing this? Takeshi folded the paper and put it in his pocket. Because we don't have a choice. Li Wei was a careful man. He'd survived 43 years in a profession where most men didn't make it past 30 by being careful. He checked his exits. He varied his routines. He never stayed in one place long enough to leave a shadow. But tonight, sitting in a dim bar on the waterfront with a glass of whiskey he hadn't touched, he felt the weight of eyes on him. Not paranoia, experience. Someone was watching. He scanned the room without moving his head. The bartender. Local. Disinterested. 2 men at a table near the back. Longshoremen by the look of them. A woman at the bar 3 seats down, nursing a beer. No one obvious. Which meant they were good. Li Wei checked his watch. 8:47 p.m. 13 minutes until the meeting Kamaria had arranged. Some potential client, she'd said. High-paying. Discreet. He didn't believe her. Kamaria Ochieng had used him well, paid him better, but he'd always known she would cut him loose eventually. People like her didn't leave witnesses. They left corpses. So why had he come? Because he was curious. And because 43 years of survival had taught him that running sometimes drew more attention than standing still. At 8:55, a man walked into the bar. Tall, Asian, expensive suit. Moving with the kind of controlled grace that spoke of violence held in careful check. Takeshi Yamada. Li Wei's pulse didn't quicken. He'd been expecting this. A moment later, another man entered. Younger, sharp-featured, cold eyes that swept the room like a predator scanning for threats. Vincent Zhao. Li Wei allowed himself a small smile. So it had come to this. Takeshi crossed the bar and sat down across from Li Wei. Vincent remained standing, blocking the exit. The bartender glanced over, noted the tension, and found something urgent to do in the back room. Mr. Li, Takeshi said quietly, we need to talk. Li Wei leaned back in his chair. I imagine we do. You know who we are? Yes. And you know what we want. The child. Takeshi's expression didn't change. Where is she? With people who believe she's valuable. Where? Li Wei picked up his whiskey and took a slow sip. You're not going to shoot me. If you were, you'd have done it already. Which means you need something. Information. Which I can provide, for a price. Vincent stepped forward. Name it. Li Wei set down his glass. Safe passage out of the city. New identity. 2 million in untraceable funds. Done, Vincent said immediately. Li Wei raised an eyebrow. That was fast. I don't care about money, I care about my daughter. Interesting. Most men in your position care about everything. I'm not most men. Li Wei studied him. Then he looked at Takeshi. And you? What are you willing to pay? Whatever it takes. Even your empire? Takeshi met his eyes. Yes. Li Wei was quiet for a moment. Then he laughed. A soft, almost sad sound. You're serious? Yes. Both of you would give up everything for a child neither of you can claim. She doesn't need claiming, Takeshi said. She needs protecting. Li Wei leaned forward. From what? From Kamaria? She wants the same thing you do. To keep the child safe. Safe from what she is, Vincent said. Not safe to be what she is. And what is she? A child, Takeshi said simply. Not a prophecy, not a symbol. Just a child who deserves a chance to choose her own future. Li Wei studied them both for a long moment. Then he sighed and pulled a photograph from his jacket pocket. He placed it on the table. It showed a compound, different from the one they'd raided. Larger, more remote. 3 hours north, Li Wei said. In the mountains. That's where Kamaria took them. How do we know you're telling the truth? Vincent asked. You don't. But I am. Because Kamaria promised me payment after the job was complete. And the job was to deliver the child to that compound, which I did. And then she tried to have me killed. Takeshi's eyes narrowed. When? 2 hours ago. I was supposed to meet her contact at this bar, but the contact never showed. Instead, I got a text. A warning from someone inside her organization. Someone who thinks this has gone too far. Who? I don't know, but they told me you were coming. Told me to tell you the truth. And to tell you something else. What? Li Wei's expression was grim. Kamaria isn't working alone. She has backers. People with resources. People who believe the prophecy is real and that the child is the key to ending what they call the Age of Wolves. Meaning you. Meaning men like you who control cities through fear and blood. How many? Takeshi asked. At least 20, maybe more. Scattered across the world. But they're all watching this. All waiting to see if you can be broken. If the child can be taken from you. If the prophecy can be fulfilled. Vincent's jaw clenched. And if we take her back? Then they'll come for her. Again and again. Until one of you is dead, or she's theirs. Silence. Then Takeshi spoke quietly. Unless we give them what they want. Vincent looked at him sharply. What? They want proof that the child is better off without us. That we're monsters who can't be trusted. That violence is all we know. Takeshi's eyes were steady. So we prove them wrong. How? Takeshi looked at Li Wei. You said Kamaria wanted you dead. That someone warned you. Who? I don't know. But they're inside her organization. Yes. Then we find them. We turn them. We use them to get inside the compound, and then... Takeshi paused. We surrender. Vincent stared. What? We walk in. Unarmed. Alone. We tell Kamaria she was right, that we're not capable of being what the child needs. And we ask, not demand, ask, for a chance to prove otherwise. That's insane. That's the only way. Takeshi met his eyes. We've tried violence. We've tried war. All it's done is prove Kamaria's point. So we try something else. We try humility. Vincent's hands clenched. I don't do humility. Neither do I. But if it's the only way to get her back, I'll learn. For a long moment Vincent said nothing. Then, slowly, he nodded. Fine. But if this doesn't work, then we burn the world down, Takeshi said. But we try this first. Li Wei watched them with something that might have been respect. You're either very brave or very stupid, he said. Probably both, Takeshi replied. He stood. The warning you received. Can you trace it? No. It was sent through an encrypted service. Untraceable. Then we wait for them to contact us again. And if they don't? Takeshi's smile was cold. Then we go in anyway. The message came 6 hours later. Takeshi was in his study at the estate, staring at the photograph Li Wei had given them, when his phone buzzed. Unknown number. I can get you inside, but you have to trust me. Takeshi typed back immediately. Who are you? Someone who wants the child to have a choice, someone who thinks Kamaria is wrong. Why? Because I've seen what happens when children are raised as symbols instead of people. I won't let it happen again. Takeshi hesitated. Then, what do you want? Meet me tomorrow, noon, the cemetery where your wife is buried. Come alone. Takeshi stared at the message. The cemetery. Where this had all started. I'll be there. The conversation ended. Takeshi forwarded the messages to Vincent with a single line. It's happening. Vincent's reply came immediately. I'm coming with you. They said, alone. I don't care. Takeshi didn't argue. If Vincent wanted to risk it, that was his choice. He put the phone down and walked to the window. Outside, the estate was quiet, peaceful. The same grounds where he'd walked with the baby strapped to his chest, talking to her about Maharu, about gardens, about futures neither of them might have. He thought about Kamaria's words. You're a grieving widower who wants a replacement for the woman you lost. Was she right? Had he projected Maharu onto the child? Used the baby to fill a void that could never be filled? He didn't know. But he knew this. When he held that baby, he didn't think about Maharu. He thought about the child herself, her tiny hands, her dark eyes, the small sounds she made when she was content. He wanted to protect her not because of what she represented, but because she deserved protection. That had to count for something, didn't it? The cemetery was gray and quiet under an overcast sky. Takeshi and Vincent arrived separately. Takeshi from the east gate, Vincent from the south. They met at Miharu's grave, standing on either side of the headstone. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Vincent broke the silence. Your wife. What was she like? Takeshi was quiet for a moment. Kind, patient, everything I wasn't. Did she know what you were? Yes. And she loved you anyway? I don't know. Maybe she loved who I could have been, not who I was. Vincent nodded slowly. The mother of my child, Amara. I knew her for one night, but I remember thinking she was too smart for the life she was living. Too good. Do you regret it? Walking away? Every day. Takeshi looked at him. Then why did you? Because I didn't know how to be anything other than what I am. And I didn't want to ruin her. Vincent's voice was quiet. Turns out I ruined her anyway. You didn't. Kamaria did. The prophecy did. The people who believe children are tools instead of people. Vincent's jaw tightened. If we get her back? When we get her back? When? What then? Who raises her? You. Me. Both of us? Takeshi didn't answer immediately. Then, her mother, Amara. She's the one who gave birth to her, who protected her, who sacrificed everything to keep her safe. She's the one who has the right to decide. And if she chooses neither of us, then we accept it, and we make sure the child knows we tried. Vincent looked like he wanted to argue, but he didn't. Instead, he said, You're a better man than I gave you credit for. So are you. A voice spoke from behind them. That's good to hear. Both men turned. Standing 10 feet away was a woman, late 30s, Asian, dressed in simple black. Her face was scarred, old burns across her left cheek and neck. She held a gun, but it was pointed at the ground. Who are you? Takeshi asked. My name is May. I work for Kamaria. Or I did, until I realized what she was planning. Which is? To raise the child as a weapon. Not a physical weapon. A symbolic one. Proof that her ideology is superior. That violence can be bred out of bloodlines if you control them early enough. May's voice was bitter. She's planning to take the child to Europe, raise her there, never let her know about you, about her mother, about where she came from. Vincent's hands clenched. We won't let that happen. I know. That's why I'm here. May reached into her jacket and pulled out a keycard. This will get you into the compound, through the service entrance. It's how I get in and out without being logged. She tossed it to Takeshi. He caught it. Why are you helping us? May's expression was haunted. Because I was that child once, taken from my parents, raised by people who thought they knew better, told that I was special, that I had a purpose. And by the time I realized they'd stolen my life, it was too late to get it back. Where are your parents now? Vincent asked. Dead. They looked for me for 15 years. Never stopped. And it killed them. May's voice cracked. I won't let Kamaria do that to another family. I won't let that child grow up not knowing she was loved, not knowing people fought for her. Takeshi stepped forward. What's the security like? 12 guards. Cameras on every entrance except the service door. Kamaria keeps the child and Amara in the east wing. 3rd floor. She's always with them. She doesn't trust anyone else. Can you get us to them? Yes. But you need to come tonight. Tomorrow she's moving them. If you miss this window, you'll never find them again. Tonight, Takeshi repeated. May nodded. Midnight. I'll be waiting at the service entrance. Come armed. But don't shoot unless you have to. There are children in that compound. Not just yours. Others Kamaria has saved. If bullets start flying, they'll be in the crossfire. Vincent's face was grim. Understood. May turned to leave. Wait, Takeshi called out. She paused. Thank you. May looked back at him. Don't thank me. Just don't waste the chance I'm giving you. Then she walked away, disappearing into the maze of headstones. Takeshi and Vincent stood in silence. Then Vincent spoke. Do we trust her? No. But we're going anyway. Yes. Could be a trap. Could be. Vincent smiled grimly. Then let's make sure we're ready for one. Midnight. The compound rose out of the darkness like a fortress. High walls, floodlights, guard towers. Takeshi and Vincent approached on foot, leaving their men a quarter-mile back as reserve. They wore body armor under dark jackets, carried suppressed pistols, moved through the trees like shadows. At the service entrance, May was waiting. She looked pale, nervous. You came, she said. Did you doubt it? Vincent asked. No, but Kamaria did. She thinks you're too proud to risk coming in person. Then she doesn't know us very well, Takeshi said. He held up the keycard. This work? Yes. But once you're inside, you have 5 minutes before the system logs the entry. After that, security will know something's wrong. 5 minutes to get to the 3rd floor. Yes. Can you lead us? May shook her head. I can't be seen with you. If Kamaria finds out I betrayed her, she'll kill me. But I can tell you the route. East corridor, 2nd stairwell, 3rd floor, 4th door on the left. That's where they are. How many guards between here and there? 2. Maybe 3. And Kamaria? She'll be in the room with them. She always is. Vincent's jaw tightened. If she's hurt the child, she hasn't. She genuinely believes she's protecting her. That's what makes this so hard. May's voice dropped. She's not a monster. She's just someone who's convinced herself that the ends justify the means. Takeshi understood. He'd told himself the same thing for 30 years. Thank you, May, he said. She nodded and stepped back into the shadows. Takeshi swiped the keycard. The door unlocked with a soft click. He and Vincent entered the compound. The hallways were quiet. They moved fast, weapons ready, checking corners. Every second counted. First guard. Eliminated. Silently. A chokehold. Unconscious before he hit the floor. Second guard. The same. Third floor. Fourth door. Takeshi and Vincent positioned themselves on either side. Vincent looked at him. Ready? Takeshi nodded. Vincent kicked the door open. Inside, the room was bright and warm. A crib, a rocking chair. Toys scattered on the floor. And in the center, holding the baby, was Amara. She looked up, her eyes wide. Vincent. Takeshi. Behind her, Kamaria stood. Calm. Unsurprised. I knew you'd come, she said. Takeshi kept his weapon trained on her. Step away from them. Or what? You'll shoot me? In front of the child? If I have to. Kamaria smiled sadly. No, you won't. Because you're trying to prove you're better than that. Trying to prove I'm wrong about you. She was right. Takeshi lowered his gun. Vincent did the same. We're not here to hurt anyone, Takeshi said. We're here to make a deal. What kind of deal? Let Amara choose. Let her decide who raises the child. You, me, Vincent. All of us. None of us. Whatever she thinks is best. Kamaria's expression didn't change. And if she chooses me? Then we walk away. No retaliation, no vendetta. We let her go. You're lying. No. Takeshi's voice was steady. I'm not. Because if Amara believes the child is safer with you, then she probably is. And I care more about the child's safety than my pride. Kamaria studied him. Then she looked at Vincent. And you? Vincent's hands were shaking, but his voice was firm. Same. If Amara thinks the child is better off with you, I'll accept it. But she deserves the choice. Kamaria was silent for a long moment. Then she looked at Amara. What do you want? Amara looked down at the baby in her arms. Tears streamed down her face. I want her to have a family, she whispered. Not a prophecy. Not a purpose. Just a family. People who love her. Who will protect her. Who will let her be herself. And who can give her that? Kamaria asked gently. Amara looked at Vincent, then at Takeshi. They can, she said quietly, if they work together, if they put her first, if they let go of their pride and their empires and just be her fathers. Kamaria's expression cracked. You're asking the impossible. I know. Amara's voice was steady. But they've already done impossible things for her. They've called a truce. They've risked everything. They've come here unarmed because I asked them to. If that's not love, I don't know what is. Kamaria looked at the two men. Then she closed her eyes. This is a mistake. Maybe, Amara said, but it's mine to make. Kamaria was silent. Then, slowly, she nodded. Fine, but I'm staying in the city, I'm watching. And if either of you, hurts that child or uses her for your own ends, I will take her back. And next time, you won't find me. Understood, Takeshi said. Kamaria walked to the door. She paused and looked back at Amara. Are you sure? Amara nodded. Yes. Kamaria left. The room fell silent. Amara stood, still holding the baby, and walked to Vincent. Do you want to hold her? She asked softly. Vincent's eyes filled. He nodded, not trusting himself to speak. Amara placed the baby in his arms. For a moment, Vincent just stood there, staring down at his daughter. His hands were shaking, his breath was unsteady. Then the baby made a small sound and reached up, her tiny hand brushing his face. Vincent broke. He pulled the baby close and wept, silent, shaking sobs that came from somewhere deep and broken. Amara put her hand on his shoulder. After a moment, Vincent looked at Takeshi. You should... I'm fine, Takeshi said quietly. But he wasn't. Because watching Vincent hold the child he'd fought so hard for, seeing the rawness in the other man's face, Takeshi realized something. The baby had never been his. He'd loved her, protected her, wanted her. But she belonged to Vincent and Amara, and he had to let her go. Amara seemed to understand. She crossed to Takeshi and took his hand. "Thank you," she said, "for saving her, for protecting her, for caring." Takeshi's throat tightened. "She deserves better than me. She deserves people who love her, and you do. Not like he does." Amara smiled sadly. "No, not like he does. But that doesn't make it less real." She looked at Vincent. "Can Takeshi be part of her life? Can he see her? Be someone she knows?" Vincent looked at Takeshi. "Do you want to?" Takeshi hesitated. Then he nodded. "Yes." "Then yes." Vincent's voice was rough. "Because you're right. She deserves a family. And if you're willing to be part of it, then you are." Takeshi felt something in his chest ease. Not closure, not peace, but something close. "What will you name her?" he asked. Vincent looked at Amara. Amara looked down at the baby and smiled. "Miharu," she said softly, "after the woman who started this. The woman who showed Takeshi it was possible to love something more than power." Takeshi's breath caught. Vincent nodded. "Miharu Zhao." The baby, Miharu, made a small sound as if approving. Takeshi reached out and touched her hand. Her fingers curled around his. "Hello, Miharu," he whispered. "I'm going to make sure you grow up safe, I promise." The baby held his finger, and for the first time in months, Takeshi felt something like hope. 3 months later, Takeshi stood in the garden behind his estate, watching the koi drift beneath the surface of the pond. Beside him, Reiko sat on a stone bench, her hands folded in her lap. "You're healing," she said quietly. "Am I?" "Yes." Slowly. "But yes." Takeshi was quiet for a moment. "I still think about her. Every day." "Miharu?" "Both of them." Reiko smiled. "That's good. It means you haven't forgotten what matters." "I've let go of my empire. Most of it. Handed control to Tanaka. Stepped back. And how does it feel?" "Strange. Empty. But also lighter." Reiko nodded. "That's what happens when you stop carrying the weight of the world." Takeshi's phone buzzed. A text from Vincent. "She took her first steps today. Thought you'd want to know." Attached was a photo. Miharu, 9 months old now, standing on wobbly legs, holding on to Vincent's hands. Amara was in the background, laughing. Takeshi smiled. He typed back, "I'm proud of her." Vincent's response came immediately. "So am I. You should visit. She asks about you." "She can't talk yet." Doesn't stop her from asking. Takeshi's smile widened. "I'll come by this weekend." "Good. Bring your mother. Amara wants to meet her." Takeshi looked at Reiko. "They want us to visit. Then we'll visit." Takeshi put the phone away and looked out at the garden. Miharu had loved this place. His wife, the woman who'd shown him what it meant to love something more than power. And now her name lived on in a child who would grow up knowing she was loved by 3 people who had nothing in common except her. It wasn't the ending Takeshi had expected, but it was the one he needed. "Mother," he said quietly, "what did God really give me?" Reiko was silent for a long moment. Then she smiled. "Not the child," she said. "The choice." Takeshi frowned. "What choice?" "The choice to love without owning, to protect without possessing, to be something more than what you were." Reiko looked at him. "That child didn't need you to be her father. She needed you to be the man who could step aside when it was right. And you did. That doesn't feel like a gift. It feels like loss. All gifts do. At first. But over time, you'll understand." Takeshi wasn't sure he believed her, but he wanted to. He thought of Vincent holding his daughter, Amara's smile, Miharu's tiny hand gripping his finger. Maybe Reiko was right. Maybe the gift wasn't the baby. Maybe it was the chance to be better than he'd ever been, to break the cycle, to choose love over empire, to let go, and in letting go, to find something he'd never known he was missing. Peace. Across the city, in a modest apartment with sunlight streaming through the windows, Vincent Zhao sat on the floor with his daughter. Miharu was playing with blocks, stacking them carefully and then knocking them over with a squeal of delight. Amara was in the kitchen, making tea. Vincent watched his daughter and felt something he'd never felt before. Contentment. Not happiness. Not joy. Just the quiet, steady feeling of being exactly where he was supposed to be. His empire was smaller now. He'd stepped back from the violence, handed control to Chen, kept only what was necessary to ensure his family's safety. People said he'd gone soft. He didn't care. Miharu knocked over her blocks again and looked at him, grinning. Vincent grinned back. Again? He asked. She clapped her hands. He rebuilt the tower. She knocked it down. They did this 17 more times, and Vincent didn't mind at all. Amara came in carrying 2 cups of tea. She sat beside him and handed him one. She likes you, she said. I like her too. She asks about Takeshi. I know. He's visiting this weekend. Amara smiled. Good. She should know him. He saved her life. So did you. We all did. Amara's voice was soft. That's what makes her ours. Vincent looked at her. Are you happy? Are you? I asked first. Amara was quiet for a moment. Then she nodded. Yes, I think I am. For the first time in a long time. Me too. Miharu crawled into Vincent's lap and settled against his chest. He wrapped his arms around her and closed his eyes. This was what God had given him. Not a legacy. Not an empire. Not proof that his life had mattered. Just a child who needed him. And that was enough. In a quiet house in the hills, Kamaria Ochieng sat in her study, watching the sun set through the window. On her desk was a photograph of Miharu, sent by Amara 2 weeks ago. The child was smiling, healthy, loved. Kamaria had failed. Or had she? She'd set out to save the child from the violence of men like Vincent and Takeshi. But in the process, she'd changed the men themselves. Forced them to become better. Forced them to choose love over power. Forced them to break the cycle. Maybe that was victory enough. She closed the photograph and put it in a drawer. Then she pulled out a list of names. Other children. Other families. Other prophecies waiting to unfold. Her work wasn't finished. It never would be. But for now, she would watch. And wait. And hope that Miharu would grow up to be what her grandmother had seen. A bridge between worlds. A breaker of cycles. A child who proved that blood didn't determine destiny. Choice did. Kamaria smiled and turned off the light. The prophecy would fulfill itself. Or it wouldn't. Either way, the child would decide. Not the men who'd fought for her. Not the woman who'd tried to save her. The child herself. And that, Kamaria realized, was how it should have been all along. 20 years later, Miharu Zhao stood at her father's grave. Vincent had died 6 months ago. Heart attack, quick, painless. He'd been holding her hand when it happened. His last words had been, "Tell Takeshi I said thank you." She'd promised she would. Now, standing in the cemetery where it had all begun, Miharu felt the weight of everything she'd never known. Everything she'd been told. Everything she'd pieced together. She knew about the prophecy. About the war. About the men who'd fought for her and the woman who'd tried to take her. She knew she was supposed to be something. A symbol. A bridge. A breaker of cycles. But standing here, looking at her father's name carved in stone, she realized something. She wasn't any of those things. She was just Maharu, a woman who'd been loved by 3 people who had nothing in common except her. A woman who'd grown up knowing she was worth fighting for. A woman who'd chosen her own path. Not the path of violence, not the path of prophecy. Just her path. She knelt and placed flowers on the grave. "Thank you, Dad," she whispered, "for choosing me, for letting me be me." She stood and turned. Takeshi was waiting at the gate. Older now, grayer, but still upright, still strong. She walked to him and took his arm. "Ready?" he asked. "Yes." They walked out of the cemetery together. Behind them, the sun set on the graves of the men who'd loved a child enough to let her go, and in letting go, had given her everything.